We're just waiting for 1 p.m. here. And it's 1 p.m. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. I would ask for a moment of silent reflection so that we may reflect upon our duties of today, please. Thank you. I'll ask council of any pecuniary interest to declare now or at time of the topic. Seeing no hands, thank you. So at this time, I would welcome those of you who are in attendance in the virtual world, and a warm welcome to our council and to staff on this beautiful fall day in September. So I'll remind council that we will be having a meeting at 2 p.m., a public meeting, so that we may enter into that to cover. So we have lots to cover today. It's going to be a big meeting, so we'll try to stay on task and get things done. So to start, I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Mayor,
Yes.
Can I just ask you to wait a minute? I'm waiting for Councillor Archer. He didn't have his video on and you need to see him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. One moment, please.
I see him there now anyway.
There we go.
Oh, we didn't, yeah.
Hey, Wilbur.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
I
We've got
was
so
on
many.
there, but I got lost somehow.
We have a lot of staff on board and the screen was full for me here. So anyways, we've gone through some introductories here. They're just saying it's going to be a long meeting. We're going to try to stay on task. I've asked for pecuniary interest if there was any, so I don't believe that you have any.
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended with the addition of the R11 Norwood Park Phase 3 to that. And please a motion. Be Councillor War and Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? Unanimous show of hands. Thank you. Now I'm looking for a motion now for the meeting minutes of August the 25th as presented and or as amended. Councillor Walsh and Councillor Archer, all in favor? That'd be carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from those minutes at this time? Councillor Walsh?
Through you, Mayor. Candace, regarding R10, which was the mandatory face covering policy, how's that gone? Has there been any issues, concerns with staff and or people coming in and out of any of our facilities?
And none. It has been no issues to report to date. Well received by staff and has no issues with the public entering any of the facilities and following the protocols in place.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, consent agenda. So a motion to the receive, or does somebody want to pull something? Deputy Mayor Burt?
I will receive, but I would like to pull C1 and C2. I don't know if anybody else has anything else.
Seeing no one else, so Councillor Walsh?
Actually, I was C2 as well, more just a comment.
Okay, perfect. So that'll go on to the, I believe it's the consent agenda, right?
Yes, just Councillor War, you had asked for C3. Do you still want C3 to be pulled?
No, I think my question was answered, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So we need basically C3 through to C7 as correspondence for information. And R1 then, the report concerning the second quarter. Were we going to discuss that or pull that into that too now?
No, that'll remain on the consent agenda unless council wishes to pull it.
No, seeing that, then we're looking to approve the consent agenda as circulated then. Receive and Councillor Walsh and Councillor War, all in favor? That would be carried. Yes.
So Mayor, we had a motion on the floor put forward by Deputy Mayor Burt asking for it to be received for information by pulling the consent agenda by pulling C1 and C2. So that's your motion. So Lori put that on the floor. So we just need a seconder and then the vote, because otherwise I've got two motions kind of halfway done at this point.
Okay, sorry about that. Councillor Archer then, please, seconder. All in favor?
Thank you.
That's carried. Good. So we have no delegations or presentations. So next on the agenda would be staff and community reports. So we're starting with R2, which would normally be Kyle, but he's on an emergency right now, I believe. And so Candace, you're going to look after this report and the reports concerning compliance inspection for the Trent View Estate.
Yes, as council knows, on a regular basis, we get announced and unannounced inspections on our distribution systems. This, due to COVID-19, this was initiated a remote inspection of the Trent View Estates distribution system by our provincial officer, Rebecca Trone, who has been assigned to our municipality for some time. The final inspection report has been attached for council's consideration and review. The inspection rating for this was 93.02%. And with that, you can see the reasoning why was in regards to OREG 170-03, which states that small municipal residential systems provide secondary disinfection must sample for free chlorine residuals. Basically, it was a timing of those samples and testing being done, and a review of the records provided for the inspection period indicate that one distribution chlorine residual sample was missed and two samples were taken less than 48 hours apart. So they have to be 48 hours apart. So one sample was taken slightly less than 48 hours of the other one. Staff has been trained and has put into a kind of a redundancy process under mesh, so that the staff members do receive an email, and that's been put into place, which satisfied the inspector, which satisfied me, and that process has been implemented as we speak.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, so we're looking for motion to receive for information then, please. Councillor Walsh and Deputy Mayor Burt, all in favor? Carried with unanimous hands. Thank you. R3 then would be Greg Hartwick, our Manager of Community Center, Parks and Facilities. And this report is regarding advertising fee reduction. Greg, I see you online. It's all yours, sir.
Hey, if everybody can hear me or not?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yep. This is just regards to our advertisers in our facility. We have 56 advertisers in our facility, primarily on the arena boards and on walls, signs that. And there's something that we normally send out bills for an invoice at the 1st of August, and the year runs from September 1 to August 31. And I haven't had nobody requested this. It's just a matter of case. We basically had 6 months with no exposure at all for any of these advertisers in our facility. And it looks like even the next little while will be limited exposure. The majority of these advertisers have been with us probably since 2004 when the facility first opened, and staff are just feeling that it might be appropriate not to charge a full rate this year on those advertising signs because of those reasons. So that's just pretty well sums up.
Okay. Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Burt?
Not really any questions. I think that's a great idea, especially with businesses. They've been hit hard in many ways, and I think that's a great idea. I do just have one question for you, Greg. Have there been any new interest come forward for new sponsorships at all? I just wondered, as some businesses change, I was just curious about that.
Not in the last 6 months. There is one new sign going up here shortly from Rural Links. I haven't got it yet, but that's
Okay.
probably the first change we've had since going back to February, January. But it's normally 1 or 2 a year. If I take a sign down, I normally take them down, leave the spot open, within a month it's gone. So it's been pretty good that way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council, anyone else? Councillor War, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I just a comment to Greg. Thank you for doing that. I think that a lot of businesses, as Deputy Mayor said, have been hard hit, and they've supported the arena and the community center for a long time. So that was a good initiative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So we're looking for a motion then to receive and approve the reduction in rate. Deputy Mayor Burt, Councillor War, all in favor? That would be carried with unanimous hands. Thank you. Next would be R4, which would be Jeff Walden. He's our Manager of Public Works and Environmental Services, and this report's concerning the installation of a stop sign.
Thanks, Mayor. I think it's, as council and staff is well aware, our fifth line south by the river has become a very busy spot over the course of the summer with the water access and day trippers and the use of the Trans-Canada Trail. It's been brought to staff's attention that we've had some near misses down there with just some maybe not understanding how a yield sign should be treated at McGuire Road in the fifth line right beside the Trans-Canada Trail. Anyhow, it's staff's recommendation that as through bylaw that we switch it to a stop sign just to clean up and maybe have a better understanding on how that intersection should be handled for the traveling public.
Thanks, Jeff. Any questions from council on that one? Councillor War?
Hi, Jeff. I just wanted to ask a question. Are there any other concessions, intersections where the trail intersects with the road or the water access that have also become problems with the township with the increased water usage and the trail use, or is that the only concern that you've had?
That's the only one that I've had. Just there's a lot of different things going on there outside of the trail as well. So the trail doesn't generally cause us a lot of grief, but just with the water access and the day trippers this year, plus the traffic trail, it just just to try to remove some liability, I think it's a way to have a better understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yes, through the mayor. Thank you, Jeff, for that report. Yes, I've kind of been down there a little bit, and there certainly is increased traffic. It's unfortunate that people don't know how a yield sign can work, but that's okay. But just to let staff know as well, even though there is a stop sign at the corner of River Road and the fifth line right there, just north of that intersection, probably in the past month, I've been coming down River Road and two people have flown right through that stop sign. So perhaps people don't even know what a stop sign is. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Hopefully the stop sign at McGuire Road works, but I don't think we have an answer for that. We can't fix that, but that's the way it goes. But anybody who drives that road and is local is aware of that, that situation in that area. So we always watch carefully. So I just wanted to let you know, and I will move that report.
Right, so the motion would be to receive and then direct staff to install the said sign then. So we have a mover, looking for a seconder. Councillor Archer, thank you. All in favor? And that's carried unanimous, thanks. Okay, on to R5 would be Ed Whitmore, and he's our Chief Building Official and Planning Coordinator. And this report is concerning the Public Health Sewage Systems Agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so this sewage system services agreement has been brought forward because the previous agreement through the County of Peterborough expired May 18th in 2019. We since then had a working group to come up with new ideas on how to have a better agreement, because some of the townships wanted to pull out and others thought that the services that were offered were doing all right. So they formed a working group through the township people, staff, the county staff, and the health unit. They brought forward a draft agreement a few times, and then COVID hit. There was a further extension. The county extended it until the agreement until November of this year to give us more time to get this through council. And what you see is the draft agreement here is a 4-year term for the agreement, and then it has an automatic renewal of a 4-year term. And the reason of the 4-year renewal term is just so that we don't have to keep bringing it back and forth to council. And there are options in the agreement to allow us to opt out at any time. All we have to do is provide written notice. So the agreement can be terminated. We can take it over in-house if need be at any time. Just we would have to comply with the timeframes, that's all. So I think that the agreement is a very comprehensive agreement, and that it covers most issues that will come up. So the agreement, or this report that you see before you, has the sewage system services agreement, and it also has the Peterborough Public Health staff report. So if there's any questions regarding it, then I'd be happy to answer them.
Council, anything at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Just a comment. I think the report is very fulsome and it looks good. And Peterborough County City, or the City Health Unit, the septic branch, they do certainly a very thorough job on their inspections, and I don't see any issues with it at all to continue with the Public Health Unit on their septic inspections. And it's certainly not an onerous form or way for homeowners to get their septic permits. So I have no problem with the report going forward.
Any other comments, council? Seeing none, so we're looking for a motion to receive and approve then. Councillor Archer. Seconder, Councillor Walsh. All in favor? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Next would be R6, which would be Shane Smith. Welcome, Shane. He's our bylaw officer. And this report is proposed amendments to the mobile canteen bylaw. Take it
Thank you,
away,
Mayor. Thank you. Yeah, this is primarily a housekeeping bylaw. We kind of cleaned up a bit of the numbering of the sections. There were some redundant statements with respect to timing of license issuances, primarily the duration of the license. We just decided through interacting with several applicants to change the license period from 12 months from date of issuance to whichever date they got the license on. The license expires on December 31st of that year. We were kind of running into situations where a license had been issued and they were operating right through their starting season and into their prime season, and suddenly their license was expired. And then we were chasing the applicants and all of the other agencies and bodies that need to inspect prior to issuing a license. And so we were technically, canteens were operating for a brief period of time unlicensed. So this was just a method to clean that up and put the onus of application back on the license applicant. Basically a small housekeeping bylaw.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Council, any questions? Councillor Walsh.
For you, Mayor. Shane, just one quick question. In section 5, the maximum total number of mobile canteens is 3. Is that the same as what we have now, or is that different?
Nope, that stayed the same. There's 3 canteens and 3 mobile concessions. They're subtly, defined differently, but typically that's what we've allowed in the past. Okay. We've only ever actually, to my knowledge, had two active canteens since I've been with the municipality. So.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Burt, I seen your hand.
Yeah, that was my question as well, so no need to ask.
Okay, anyone else at this time? Seeing no hands, motion to receive and approve the report then, please. Councillor Walsh and Councillor Archer, all in favor, please. That's carried unanimous. Thank you. So R7 would be Ed Whitmore again, please. And this report is concerning an application for validation of Title V-1-20. Ed, please.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This application for validation of title is the first that I've seen since I've been in municipal politics and working government since 1990. So these are very rare. What happened was there was a planning error back in 1969. And so there's an actual application that you can file with the consent department, Peterborough Planning Department. And they treat it as a severance, but it's not a severance. So it's very similar. And so you go through the same process. They circulate the agencies, they complete the application. We send in a municipal appraisal form. So if we had any issues or we could see that it didn't comply with the official plan or with the zoning bylaw, then we would make note of it and make them aware of it so that they would have to correct those. So when they sold the property in 1969, because they had abutting lands, this property went along with it. So it was just an error. So they're trying to sort that out. The planning department did a preliminary severance review, and they said that it appears to comply with the growth plan of the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the provincial policy statement policies, the county and the township official plans, and it looks like it appears to the conforms to the township zoning bylaw as well. The property is zoned agricultural and a little, maybe 5% EP, environmental protection. So attached, you'll see a long list of paper here of there's the letter to the township, the application, the preliminary severance review, the authorized agent letter, and then to finalize it is the municipal appraisal form that we'll send to the county if this gets approved today. And so there are no conditions. Everything meets all the approvals in place. So that's it.
Thank you, Ed. Council, any questions at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt.
That's okay. Through you, Mayor. Really no questions. Just a comment. I find it odd that it took 50 years to find this, and I know it was this council's first, and I'm quite surprised that it's your first as well in a very long time, Ed. So it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see how the process works. So I'm glad we're able to fix this error.
Me too.
Good comment. Okay, so what we're looking for now is a motion to receive and forward to the County Land Division then, please. So Deputy Mayor Burt and Councillor Archer, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So R8 would be Ed again, please. And this report concerns a merger with Warner and Maple View retirement residents. Please, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is a long line of the going through the process for doing a lot addition. It started out with a consent application. We went through, it was approved with conditions for the Maple View retirement residents. The zoning bylaw amendment went through council and was passed. Now we have the merger agreement is brought forward today, and this is all to satisfy one of the conditions of the consent application. It was B-9-20. And so hopefully it looks like a couple more steps and we'll get a building permit to do this. I think it was like a 22-bed expansion. So this is very good for the township, and this is just another step along the process to get this done. The merger agreement is attached for your review, and if there's any questions, I'd take them.
Well, there hasn't been questions lately, Ed. It's mostly comments. So I'm looking for a comment this time, please,
Okay.
from council.
Thank you.
Or a question. Councillor Walsh, please.
Just a comment through you, Mayor. Yeah, as you said, Ed, it's exciting to see Mapleview expanding and adding 22 more units. If this all goes through, any idea of timing? Will they start construction possibly this year, Ed?
Yes, I do believe they will.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Nice comment. Thank you. Anyone else, please? Seeing nothing at this time, then I'm looking for a motion to authorize myself, the mayor, and the clerk to enter into such merger then, please. Councillor Archer and Councillor Ward. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, Candace, I think it's your turn finally. So this would be R9, and Candace is our CAO clerk treasurer, and this report is concerning our COVID-19 safety plan. Please, Candace.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So what council has in front of you in your agenda package is a fairly comprehensive look at the township's approach to COVID-19 and some regulated policies that we have to put in place. First off, I started the staff report out with an update on each department from the municipal control group, which is acting as the COVID-19 task force, as well as what's happening at the municipal office. So you will see some more construction taking place at that facility in the vestibule tomorrow, and that should be, if all goes well, that should finalize all of the renovations to that facility. Staff has all moved into their new location, that is locations that are compliant with physical distancing measures. So we have lost our boardroom, and we've had to move the photocopier and do some shuffling around and have some rewiring and whatnot done in the municipal office. But we're getting there, and but we still are maintaining the team approach based on the current pandemic situation in the province. I am unsure at this time. I'm not willing to give a date as to when we're going to see that team approach end. It is sustaining. It has been successful. It is ensuring that the level of service that township staff has been able to give to the residents has been able to continue at a high level. And I don't foresee that needing to change until the pandemic has changed. You can see the update for Public Works and Environmental Services. I will leave it with council, and if they have any questions, please feel free, as well as the fire department. They are sticking to outdoor training at this time and are submitting a training plan for discussion prior to any outdoor training that is taking place, to just ensure that all safety measures and more eyes and ears on that plan to ensure that it's compliant with all legislation and township policies. Parks and Rec, the splash pad was closed on the 13th of September. We are looking for the ice to go in this Saturday, September 26th, with the first rental of the ice to begin October 4th. Attached to this report in the safety plan, which we will get to, you will see some of the provisions for the facilities and how they're going to be laid out in the requirements of all employees, managers, and users, and how they use the facilities. You can see that the ice rentals that have been laid out in front of council, we are in a stronger position year to date as of right now for commitments to ice rentals than we have been in previous years. So that is a good sign. The skating club has decided to postpone until January, as previously reported to council. That has not changed. And we are looking at ensuring that we can get them, may not be the original time slots that they had traditionally, as that is difficult to save for multiple months, but should be able to hopefully find them a satisfactory time frame if they do choose to start operating in January. Anyone have any questions in regards to the COVID-19 departmental update, including the community center, et cetera, before we get into the policies themselves?
Council, comments, concerns? Councillor Ward, please.
Through you, Mayor. Candace, I was just wondering if the provincial government restricts some of the COVID activities, do you feel that our municipality is in good shape to continue with the protocol we put in place to continue servicing the public?
if the provincial government puts further restrictions in place, or are you speaking of the restrictions that were just put in place on Saturday?
Well, there was some put in place for the public, but that didn't really affect our facilities. If they put anything further in place, do you feel that, you know, the office would remain open and so forth?
As of right now, the municipal office is only open as appointment only
Right.
for certain services. I do foresee us following suit with that. We may open for a few more types of appointments once the vestibule is completely renovated. It is, Peterborough Public Health has recommended that all facilities, when you've been closed for such an extended period of time for a pandemic, that you take a slow approach. It's easier to move forward than it is to go backwards and then further restrict once you've opened. So we will be taking a very slow approach to the reopening to see what's going to happen and see if further restrictions come in place. That being said, if further restrictions do come into play, that will affect probably the biggest facility that we need to be concerned about in regards to level of service is the community center. And once the ice is in, it's in. So if the province does put further restrictions in place, we'll have to take a look at what those restrictions are and adjust accordingly. Township staff has become really accustomed to making decisions on a dime. So we will do that and turn decisions around really quickly to ensure that the residents and users and staff of Asphodel-Norwood continue to be safe and continue to utilize the facility as best as we can.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yes, this is a very thorough report, and I just have a question. I guess this is for Greg. As far as ice goes, I'm curious to know what other small rural municipalities throughout, well, our region and even the province are doing as far as putting ice in. I do know Campbellford, they're just doing ice in Campbellford, not in Warkworth, and Duro-Dummer, I believe they're only doing one ice either in Duro or in Warsaw, I'm not sure which. And I'm just curious to know how things look. And as far as, you know, the hockey season goes, because I'm sure that looks completely different than what it did a year ago from now.
Want me on that, Candace?
Yeah, she asked you, yeah, but I can help. Yeah, but
Either one, I don't care.
The last I'm aware of, Havelock is still kind of up in the air. I've heard ice is going on Warsaw, but not Duro right away. I believe Innismore and Lakefield are both going in. Millbrook will be going in. Autonomy's going in. And they all seem to center around that time, first part of October, to possibly after Thanksgiving. As far as the way hockey will look, there is work can be involved in setting up some type of league. There's a meeting on September 30th for all those centers, but the league can only consist of 50-player bubbles, like those cohorts. That's all we can have. So in that case, there won't be any traveling outside Bureau of Public Health, and you can only play, say, 4 of their centers at max. So there's still some uncertainty what that's going to look like at this time. Is that coloring or?
Oh, that's
Yes.
good. And how are, if just to follow up, registrations as far as minor hockey goes? I just wonder what the numbers are compared to a normal year, because this certainly isn't a normal year.
We were pretty close to normal last. I think they were 190 or something that last night, down just a few, and that's at the older age group. At the midget age group, actually, is where the numbers have dropped off, and that's primarily because there's some uncertainty of what they're going to have to play. Most of those kids want to play games; they don't just want to practice, and it's going to be 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and for some parents and kids, that just doesn't do it for them, and they've passed on it. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, that's understandable. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Any other comments? Councillor Walsh, please.
Through you, Mayor Greg. So you talked with minor hockey bubbles of 50. When might that actually start, that we would start interacting with another center? Like, you're going to start out October the 4th. Could it be like November, December before we even ever leave our home center and interact with another town?
I suspect it'll be November, roughly the first part of November. The OHF, the Ontario Hockey Federation, requires the first 2 to 4 weeks as just skills and training for a local center, because you're not allowed to have tryouts at all at any level.
Right.
So this first 4 weeks, in some cases 2 weeks, because I've heard Warsaw doesn't go into after Thanksgiving, they may only be doing 2 weeks. But that's strictly all skill development and practices. That's all that is at that time. And
Okay.
then if there is games, it'd be no sooner than the 1st November, I'm sure of that.
Okay. And if I can ask a second question through you, Mayor. So as of right, I know, because I know this came up in the minor hockey meeting last night, there was certainly some concern among parents that only one parent for children on U13 and below were allowed in the arena at this time. That's basically because we're in stage 1 reopening. Will that be relooked if things get better or worse? It could mean less people in the arena, or potentially is there opportunity that there could be more depending on kind of which way COVID goes?
I can answer that, Councillor Walsh. So yes, that was a decision that was made by the COVID-19 task force that consists of the mayor, deputy mayor, as well as municipal managers and some township staff. We did discuss this as to what age would have been most appropriate to have a parent or guardian entering the facility with a player. And it's important to remember that the direction from Peterborough Public Health and the province is to use a conservative approach, and to ensure that if we can function with the least amount of people in that facility, the better. And then we can relax as we go instead of further restrict as we go. That being said, we chose the under 13 age category, as we felt that category was the time in a child's development where they potentially could be babysitting, staying home alone. There is a maturity level that's hit at that point that they could potentially enter a facility and not incur risk and liability and could function on their own. That being said, our neighbors, the city of Peterborough, has taken on the approach of under 18, as it is a larger facility. Their facilities are much larger and can accommodate more people easily and segregate people more easily. I can tell you that our neighbors, the town Selwyn and Otonabee South Monaghan, they're stage 1 of opening their facility. No parents for any age. You send your player in, and there is no parent or guardian that goes with them. So you're not going to see a consistent approach with this, because every facility is different and what each facility can manage is different. So the municipal control group did feel that U13 was the best age for risk management perspective, but it will be reevaluated as this goes on. It has the ability to be restricted further, which I was concerned about after Saturday's announcement,
Right.
without knowing everything that was going to come down the pipe, that we could potentially head down that road. Or hopefully, glass half full perspective, that we will be looking at it with a less restrictive approach and allowing more of a U18, more with a parent or guardian entering in for stage 2, hopefully for when the games and we start mingling with other centers. But again, once we start mingling with other centers, that's automatically going to start jumping the numbers in that facility. So is that the time we want to jump the number of parents as well? So it's going to be an ongoing conversation.
Okay. Thank you very much for that update.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, just to further that comment, just to let staff and council know, when we did sit in through that meeting, we probably went around the table many times, and it probably took well over an hour to discuss this. And so this was not thrown out there lightly. We looked at other centers, so I just want people to know we just didn't throw a number out there. It was a fulsome discussion. Certainly not everyone in agreement, but that's okay as well. And I just happened to look up. I couldn't find Campbellford what they're doing, but Duro Dummer on a newsletter on September 17th. In their newsletter, the township is not permitting any spectators, and parents will not be permitted into the arena. Players are asked to come dressed to play, as dressing rooms will not be accessed. So every center, as our CAO said, is different depending on the size. So I think we all realize this is always moving. It's always changing, and we're willing to change as the situation does. So we're trying our best. We don't not want to open that arena. We don't not want ice rentals. And I think we're all doing our best to keep things moving forward, and fingers crossed it happens, but we'll see. That's my comment.
Excellent comments. Great dialogue for sure. Anyone else in council have any questions or concerns? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. I'm looking for a motion then to receive and approve this plan then going forward.
Okay.
Councillor Ward and Deputy Mayor Burt. Yes, comment?
Actually, I think, Mayor, there's another part to this report that we were going to go over, I believe.
Yeah, so those questions and comments were on the COVID-19 update, and attached to the report, you will see the Schedule A that is going to be included for facility rentals. That is just for council's consideration. That tells you how what the users are signing in order to utilize the facility. So if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know. Moving on from that, we do have the communicable disease preparedness and response policy. This is basically a generic policy that isn't COVID-19 specific. This will get added into our emergency plan binders. So if we do get into a communicable disease situation in the future, another pandemic type situation, that we do have a standard blanket policy in place that at least starts the conversation. Of course, additional policies will come out of it, such as the safety plans or anything that's specific to that pandemic itself. But at least this is a starting point. We did not have that in the past. So the purpose and scope definitions, the personal responsibilities in regards to from the employer perspective, a supervisor perspective, an employed worker perspective. Again, a lot of these are highlighted and detailed in the Ontario Health and Safety Act. Any absences due to a communicable disease, how will they be addressed by the employer? And what would happen if there is a closure due to the pandemic, which of course we did experience in 2020. As appendices to this policy that will remain in the emergency binder that the municipal control groups use will be the physical distancing policy, as well as the sanitization and disinfection policy. They are blanket policies that are not COVID-19 specific and can be used for any communicable disease. Hopefully we don't see it in any of our lifetimes, but just in case we do have those standard policies in place. So I'll take any questions on communicable preparedness policy, and then I will move on to the safety plan.
Council, Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
I just have a question on the Schedule A, the facility rental agreement. You have in there the general provisions and then the ice rentals and the Millennium Room. Will that also include town hall, library, that sort of thing?
No, so they have a different, so the town hall and the libraries are not being rented at all.
No, I'm just wondering if you'll have something the same.
When they do open up, it'll be facility specific. So a lot of this language is specific to that facility. So when we get to a position where we're going to be renting those facilities, it will have a Schedule A, but will be more geared toward that specific facility use to make sure that we're detailing all the potential concerns.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Candace?
I think Councillor Ward has a question.
Sorry. Yep. Councillor Ward, sorry.
Through you, Mayor. I just had a question about, has there been any problems procuring any PPE and hand sanitizer, or has that been abundant? I saw that, I think it was number 22 on Schedule C, you said all employees are to report concerns about PPE and inventory levels. Are they good at this point?
Yes, all PPE levels are satisfactory in all the facilities at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else from anyone? Okay, so the motion then, please. No?
No, we got one more plan.
Okay,
Almost
I'm
there,
ready.
Mayor. Two
I'm
out of
ready.
three. One more. So the COVID-19 safety plan, this is the plan that is mandated to adopt. This is obviously the specific plan to COVID-19. So it details the hierarchy of controls that we have in place, physical distancing, how we're adjusting the workplace, providing PPE, how we're going to reopen, in what capacity we're going to reopen, the stage approach to the reopening. This will be provided to all staff, and some clear expectations are detailed in this document. The meat of it, or I guess the provisions that most will care about, will be in the schedules at the back, where we speak to each facility and what each employee of those facilities are to adhere to. The biggest concern obviously has been having employees that potentially become ill. As we enter flu season, we are entering into a time where the COVID-19 symptoms are going to look very similar potentially to just the common cold or the flu. So having to take a look at how employees are to conduct themselves with the self-screening before they come to work each day. If they fail that test, follow up with their supervisor, etc. I can tell council that that isn't a huge concern, as we have become professionals at working from home, and we do have all of the equipment and provision set up from working from home. So if that does happen and a staff member has to work from home due to being maybe not feeling quite well, even a sniffle or a stuffy nose, we don't need to enter that into the workplace as well. They will be working from home. That being said, the biggest concern is childcare. As those with small children who get sniffles are unable to either attend school or unable to attend daycare. So it's not just the employees themselves getting sick, it is the family as a whole getting sick. So one illness could take an employee out of the workplace for a week by the time it makes it through all of the family members. So, you know, staffing levels is on my radar, and it is something that I will be monitoring to ensure that we do have appropriate staffing across the board. So if council has any questions in regards to the schedules, I do ask that you take a thorough read of them. I'm not going to sit here and read them out to you, but they do speak to a lot of the provisions that staff will be held accountable to on a day-to-day basis. And it is a living document. This will be updated as we move through COVID.
Council,
That's it, Mayor. That's it.
You mean we can do a motion soon? Any other comments or concerns or questions?
For the amount of work that took, it takes longer than 5 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm sorry I missed that part there, Candace, on my plan sheet here that I had. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, council. So seeing no hands then, so now we're looking for a motion then. So
Sorry,
I think we, yes,
Mayor,
go ahead.
if I can ask one more question through you. Kenneth, you just spoke this being a living document. So if there are changes in terms of what's happening with COVID, whether it be positive or negative, what's kind of the process to make those changes? Like, are we involved? Like, can you just kind of walk me through how that would be?
In what simple little decisions are made from a staffing perspective by myself. I make those type of staffing decisions. If it's facility driven, it goes to the COVID-19 task force for discussion.
Okay.
Then the discussion takes place and a decision is made, and then that recommendation or decision is communicated to council.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay, I believe we had a motion then on the floor, and that was Councillor War, I believe. You still good with that? Okay, and the seconder, I believe, was Deputy Mayor Burt at the time, and the hand went up. Are you still good with that?
I didn't second it at the time, but I will now.
Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to push for that. Okay,
That's okay.
all in favor then, please. That would be carried. Thank you. I'll try to do better on R10 here. So Candace, again, then please, the report is the management action list.
Yes, so council has in front of you the staff reports that have been addressed at the meeting today. Coming up in October, you can see it's going to be a fairly busy month. I would like to have a conversation with council to determine if we will be holding the meeting on the Tuesday right after the Thanksgiving long weekend. Traditionally, that meeting has been either held at a different location due to government week, or it is canceled. So that would be one discussion that we need to have today so that I know when our next council meeting is. So there is enough to probably keep us busy for 2 meetings of council. I can tell you the second meeting in October is going to be much busier than the first. Anything else you see there? November into December, we've got to negotiate the OPP contract. It's up this year. The employee benefit renewal, it's annual. Insurance renewal, it's annual. So some housekeeping stuff coming up closer to the end of the year. Any questions from council as to timing and what we see? We can
Deputy Mayor
discuss
Sorry.
the October meeting in general business, so we can pass a motion.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering when that was discussed, so we'll do that in general business. And I do just have one more question through the mayor to Candace. I'm just wondering, and I probably should have done this through business arising from the minutes. Is there any word when there'll be a public meeting from the Mill Street development? Cherry Blossom, I believe it's called. I just wondered if you've heard anything on that.
Staff has a meeting with them on Thursday of this week. It'll be the first meeting that we've had with them since the open house. I'll have better gauge of timing after that meeting. It will not be in October.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else on the action list then? Seeing no hands, then we're looking for a motion to accept the report as given then, please. Councillor Walsh, seconder. Councillor Archer, all in favor? Carried, unanimous, thank you. Okay, R11 would be Candace again, please. So this report concerns Norwood Park Phase 3, please.
Yes, so the next step in the process in regards to the Phase 3 of the Norwood Park subdivision is to enter into the subdivision agreement with the developer. This is a well-negotiated document between the developer and township staff. We take a look at all facets of the development, from public works to drainage, stormwater, to location of streets, to stormwater management, to trees, to sidewalks, to infrastructure. All of that has been detailed in the subdivision agreement. A couple of things I would like to draw council's attention to. Again, I'm not going to read to you the 30-page document, but a couple of things. 2 other agreements are going to come out of this agreement. I don't know if you picked up on that in the report itself, but an off-site sanitary agreement, as well as an Albine Street reconstruction and realignment agreement. So those 2 agreements will come forward to council for consideration relatively quickly. I'm hoping in October you will see both of those documents. And they will kind of sew up the last few loose ends that we have in regards to this development from an infrastructure perspective. Outside of that, there is one other provision that I would like to draw council's attention to, and that is, I've been asked a couple of times in regards to the tree per lot provision that was in this, but was not in Phase 1 and Phase 2. I can tell you that the trees there will not be a tree on every single lot, how it's come straight across verbatim in the agreement, because 48 trees are going to be planted in the stormwater management pond as the landscaping plan. We cannot ask them to plant 48 trees in the stormwater management pond and then please plant a tree on every lot. I love the environment and I love all the oxygen from those trees, but that would be a bit unreasonable request from the developer. So although they are providing provisions for trees for the subdivision, the last page in your package, this is what will determine where the trees are going. Then, of course, the residents who purchase in the subdivision can work with the developer to get a tree on their own lot. Those are not really the highlights. There is a lot of highlights that I can speak to probably for a long period of time, but we do have a public meeting coming up at 2 o'clock. Those are what I feel are the most important points, but by all means, council, I will go through it as in depth as you wished in order for you to feel comfortable to approve this.
Council, questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And actually, Candace addressed this because the thing that I had marked was the Article 25, the offsite sanitary work, and just to make sure that we did get a detailed report and an amount on that. So that was my major concern on that, as well as the Albine Street. And then and I do believe this question was answered as far as hooking up the existing septic systems onto sewer, what the timeline was in that. And I believe, just to clarify, I believe that was 3 years. Is that correct, Candace?
That's correct.
Okay. And is there a fee for connection for that? And
yes, so it all depend on what the fees and charges bylaw state at the 3rd year, or whatever year they decide to hook up. At the time. So if they decide to hook up after 1 year or 2 years, 3rd year, it all depends on what the fees and charges bylaw that has been approved by council at the time as to what that fee is. That's what the fee will be. And they get lots of notice. We hold their hand through the process, but there's not a lot of properties that are affected because sanitary does come up to Helen Street. So it's just from basically Helen Street to the new Keeler Court at the other end. So we've got 2 semi-detached residences there and 2 homes. So not really dealing with a lot of property owners, but we will be discussing that with them at the time, giving them lots of notice, reminders, that sort of thing.
Okay, so it's certainly not to the extent that Robert Road was previous, because all of those had to be done and that took some time. So, okay, thank you. That I just wanted to clarify that.
You're welcome. And
anyone else? Seeing none. Candace, I'm going to ask, what type of motion would you like on this report then?
Just the motion that is the recommendation that is drafted on the report that just states that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood approves the Norwood Park Phase 3 subdivision agreement as presented, and further that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood authorizes the mayor and clerk to enter into the subdivision agreement for Norwood Park Phase 3 with DPH Developments, Inc.
Thank you for reading that out for us. So it's very clear. Council, I need a motion for that, please. Councillor War and Councillor Walsh, all in favor? That's carried, unanimous. Thank you very much. It's 1:57 at this time. Could we just hold off for a few minutes, possibly?
I think so. If there's any members of staff that they don't have anything going on with the public meeting and all of their staff reports have been dealt with, please feel free to leave the meeting, as we will have residents joining us at 2 p.m. to make some room in the Zoom meeting. Thank you for all of your work today, and we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, staff, very much. So at this time, then I guess we're looking for a motion to suspend the regular council meeting so that we may enter into a public meeting at 2 p.m. Councillor Archer and Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
And then if
So now we'll just wait for 2 p.m. then, right?
Yes, please.
Let's go take a quick break.
Melanie, when it comes time to have the residents raise their hand, because you've been as an attendee in a webinar for me, I may ask you to explain if we are having residents having some trouble, I guess with IT to how to specifically do that. Because It's my view as a host is very different. I don't raise my hand. People raise their hand for me. So I may call on you if people are struggling, okay? Thank you.
Are you actually able to see them too, Candace, or not, in your view?
No, it's not. I do not see video. I only see their names in a list.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
We're just waiting for 2 p.m. here before we start our public meeting. And it's 2 p.m. So I just want to say welcome to those of you that are in the public that have joined us, and to those of you who will be watching from home. Welcome to council and staff. Thank you for September 22nd of our public meeting at 2 p.m. So this public meeting, which we will consider an application to amend some bylaws on zoning, the topic of cannabis has been a hot topic of discussion in the township, which with the number of calls and letters we have received can testify to that. So anyways, at this time, I will ask council of a motion to approve this agenda, please. Deputy Mayor Burt and Councillor Walsh, all in favor? Unanimous show of hands. Thank you very much for that. Ask council of any pecuniary interest to declare at this time. Seeing none, then we'll carry on then. So Candace, I had asked that you give us an overview of the proposed application, if you could please.
Yes, so council in front of you, you'll see the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, ZBLA 04/2020, which will add definitions to the township's current zoning bylaw for cannabis processing facility, a cannabis production facility, and outdoor cannabis cultivations. This is basically regulation driven. This will put regulations in place for cannabis activities within the township. The mayor also asked me to speak in regards to the process that has been taken by the township to date in order to get to this public meeting. So I'm pleased to do that. In late 2019, the township started reviewing planning documents through a cannabis lens in conjunction with federal and provincial law. A full review of all options were considered and debated with the township land use planning solicitor. This new review of documents came after the previous term's council decision to opt in for the retail cannabis location provision. It's important to note that these two decisions are not addressing the same topic or concern, as that's been a question that we have received from the public for clarification. Township staff extensively researched planning studies conducted in rural municipalities where agricultural communities were prevalent. Ongoing consultation and research with the federal and provincial governments was undertaken, as well as Health Canada. We spoke to AMAFRA, the OFA, and of course the upper tier. The draft bylaw is proposed to regulate cannabis activities within Asphodel-Norwood borders, and it provides a balanced approach to regulating and implementing controls with the intent of preserving agricultural land while balancing the legal liability and risk to all the ratepayers of Asphodel-Norwood. It's important for the public to understand that this zoning bylaw is not permitting cannabis. The federal government has already done that. This bylaw is regulating the use. We are legally allowed to regulate the use, but we are not legally allowed to prohibit it. As of now, the township has no control mechanisms in place in regards to zoning for this type of land use, which does leave us open. This issue goes well beyond zoning. The conversation of cannabis, as we all know, and in the past couple of weeks, we have learned that it is much deeper than that. Residents have brought forward concerns in regards to criminal activities and high sale of parcels of agricultural land. Although we are sympathetic to those issues, unfortunately, they are not in Township Council's ability to control. They are a result of the legalization of cannabis and will require ongoing communication and advocacy with the provincial and federal governments to ensure that they are aware of these concerns. I'm sure council will agree with me that the township will advocate for the upper levels of government to step in and review the effects of this legislation as a whole and consider implementing blanket regulations that will assist all industries so that they can coexist together. And finally, Mayor, as a CAO, I am proud of the residents of Asphodel-Norwood in regards to the extensive public engagement that has occurred since the notice of the zoning amendment was released. Township staff have reviewed records and can confidently state that this planning application received more public consultation than all zoning bylaw amendments in the past 6 years combined. The notice was released on social media for the first time ever. This is the first zoning bylaw amendment that the township has ever released on social media, because we wanted to hear from you. We wanted to hear what was important to our residents. Outside of social media, the notice was posted on the township website, in the community press, and all township community boards. And of course, the biggest traveler of news, word of mouth. I personally have spent over 40 hours on the phone alone with residents in the past 2 weeks discussing this very important topic. Although we are living in different times, and this requires each of us to move outside of our comfort zone, township business needs to move forward, and we need to address important issues that cannot wait for the pandemic to be over. This township is too important to be left in a vulnerable position. And from the CAO's chair, that is what the township staff has went through throughout this process. It is also important to note from my chair and representing the staff of this organization that we will support and move forward with any decision of council today, whatever that may be.
Thank you, Candace. And I think you're a little light on your hours there. I think 40 is a little underestimated. I think your hours were a lot more. There was times that your phone was busy. I couldn't talk to you at all. So I think you're a little light on that. But anyways, okay, on to business then. So we're talking reports then. So R1 would be talked about here. So Ed Whitmore, our Chief Building Official Planning Coordinator, this reports zoning bylaw amendments ZUBLA 04-2020. So Ed, if you want to take it away, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Okay, so some background and comments. The federal regulation, April 13th, 2017, the government of Canada introduced the Bill C-45, that's the Cannabis Act. It later became approved, received the royal assent in June 21st, 2018, became law October 17th in 2018. Since then, municipalities across Ontario have probably been scrambling to try to figure out how to regulate, and they've hired many consultants to help them through the process. During this process, we've looked at other municipalities at their consulting documents, and what we think we've brought forward is the best of all of those various reports to address Asphodel-Norwood. Licenses are permitted. There's various types: license for cultivation, license for processing, a license for analytical testing, a license for sale medical purposes, a license for research, and a cannabis drug license. All of those are permitted and underneath the Cannabis Act. So the role of the municipalities are to try to regulate the uses. We're not permitted to prohibit them, but we are permitted to regulate them. So what we've brought forward is a number of ideas that will help to do this. So in the motion that we request, or in the recommendation and in the bylaw, there's several bullets that you will see that we'll be reading as we go through this that will help to regulate it. So we dealt with, or if we didn't deal with them, we have spoken with OMAFRA, as Candace has said. We've received some correspondence in writing where the provincial policy statement starts at the top that says that this is, crops are permitted for agricultural, as agricultural use. OMAFRA has said this is a crop that's permitted. OMAFRA and the Ontario Federation of Agriculture both say that this is a permitted use. So we're stick handling around having this activity come into our township, provide these regulations that will help regulate legal cannabis growing. So the illegal cannabis growing, this has nothing to do with that. This is only to regulate legal cannabis facilities and the growing of crops in Asphodel-Norwood. We leave the illegal cannabis growing up to the police. That's not our mandate. So when we look at the licensing, the person that receives a license must provide a written notice to the local authorities, which is us. So nobody has provided any written notice to the township to date. We have not received any notice from anybody. So if there are any legal cannabis operations out there, they have not complied with the rules for obtaining those licenses. So maybe they would be illegal operations if there's any out there in our township, and that will be dealt with through the Ontario Provincial Police or some other crime unit. We've had a number of inquiries regarding cannabis, purchasing of properties to allow cannabis, and cannabis is permitted provided they go through the proper steps and they comply with all the applicable laws out there. So we implemented the site plan control bylaw so that all cannabis facilities, whether it's processing or production and processing facilities and production facilities all have to go through a site plan control application and be approved by council prior to getting building permits for their growing facilities. That all needs to be done, and it has to be registered on title so that if the property is sold, then it goes on to the next owners as well, so that it's still law, that they have to comply with it. When we reviewed all the other consultants, all the different various bylaws that were passed, we compiled this list of what we think are good recommendations for our zoning bylaw to regulate it. So we've added these definitions for a cannabis processing facility. We've added the definition for a cannabis production facility. We've added definition for outdoor cannabis cultivation. We have a section that prohibits the cannabis production facility or cannabis processing facility to be located in a dwelling. We added a section that prohibits cannabis production facilities from being located within 150 meters, 500 feet, of any residential, institutional, or commercial zone. So if there's a farmer's property that across the road has a couple of residential lots on it, the setback is going to be pushed back 150 meters or 500 feet in order to have a production facility. So institutional uses, commercial uses, that setback applies to all of those uses. to us, they're sensitive uses, and this enhanced setback will help. Going through site plan control, we can require carbon type filters so that we eliminate all odors. So that again, that's not going to be an issue for cannabis production facilities or cannabis processing facilities. So we've also looked at a section that prohibits outdoor, we've added a section that prohibits outdoor signage and outdoor advertising so that it's not advertised that may bring in criminal activity if they know that an operation is going on. So we would not put it out on the side of the street advertising for people to see. So no signage is permitted. We've added a subsection that prohibits the storage of accessory uses from being located outside. So there's not going to be bags of soil and of fertilizer and all kinds of other accessory items that would be required to grow cannabis to be permitted outdoors to be unsightly. So again, everything would have to be kept indoors. So the bylaw would limit the maximum lot coverage of a cannabis production facility in the rural zone to 2%. So that is limiting the size and may not, it may deter some people from buying the farm if they are only permitted to use 2% of the farm. Possibly, we don't know for sure. We have a minimum front, side, and rear setback for cannabis in the rural zone to 50 meters from the lot lines. So we're trying to enhance, again, a bit of setback. The same rules apply for agricultural zone. It would be limited to 2%. So that will protect prime agricultural land as well. And there will be minimum front, side, and rear setbacks for outdoor cannabis. So the 150 meter setback applies to the rural lands, to the agricultural lands that are for any residential use, for any commercial or institutional uses that are nearby. We've amended or added a section 14 to state that cannabis production facilities are permitted in a general industrial zone. They're not permitted in any other zone. Anybody applying for a cannabis processing facility would have to go through a zoning bylaw amendment if it's not in the general industrial zone. That helps to protect agricultural land and rural lands as well. So what we've put forward is a balanced approach, and we've added the definitions and added some regulations. And as time goes on, we may be bringing forward additional zoning bylaw amendments if need be, but only time will tell. And again, this deals with legal cannabis operations, legal cannabis licensed premises. This does not deal with any illegal activities. So you can see we've received some correspondence, Enbridge Gas, from Will and Bernadette Vanderhorst, opposition, and numerous reasons. We've received other letters from Graham Sanders for or against the cannabis, and then for the cannabis regulations. You can see that there was the OFA, Ontario Agricultural, or the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. They've sent forward a letter with their resolution. So they put forward that the OFA adopt the position that licensed cannabis production for medical and/or recreation use purposes should be considered a farming activity. And further, they request all levels of government and their agencies treat income, workers, facilities in connection to the growing of cannabis consistent with treatment applied to other farm activities. So according to the agricultural world, this is a crop, and it's a typical crop of our future. And so what we are hoping to do is put some regulations in place, and we'll see how everything turns out. And you can see from my report, and Candace had a lot of input in this as well. This has been ongoing for several months to get this to where we are today, to bring this forward. And I'll answer any questions or hear any comments.
Okay, Candace, at this time, the written record or public comments, basically, did you want to read some of them out before council had a chance to ask questions?
Yes, so as following with the agenda, the next section states for public comments and written comment. And as we are now in the electronic world, traditionally we would not verbally read all of these aloud, but for those who are joining us via telephone and listening in, I feel that it's important for us to read them aloud so they're aware of everything that is being considered this afternoon. We did receive a piece of correspondence dated September 13th from Mr. Graham Saunders, from 1544 Middle Asphodel 5th line, and it states the following. Township of Asphodel-Norwood Council. This was received via email. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just become aware of a proposed zoning bylaw amendment that is to be discussed at a public meeting on September 22nd, 2020. I would like to attend the meeting via Zoom. Further, my wife, Susan Lemon, and I want to put on the record that we are opposed to cannabis production or processing facilities being set up in the township. While cannabis is a valuable cash crop and would bring economic benefits to some property owners, there are considerable downsides. The major one, as we see it, is the invitation to organized crime to set up in our neighborhood. Already, it is rumored that a motorcycle gang has set up shop on the southern edge of the village of Hastings. We also need to be concerned about the smell and impact on the quality of life in our community. I look forward to learning how I can log into the Zoom meeting. Thank you, sincerely, Graham Saunders. Mr. Graham Saunders then submitted a secondary email on September 17th via email, Township of Asphodel-Norwood Council. Ladies and gentlemen, further to my letter of September 13th, 2020, and subsequent discussions with Township staff, I would like to clarify my wife and I's position on the pending amendment to the bylaws. In my original letter, I stated that we are opposed to cannabis production and processing facilities being set up in the township. From my discussions, I have learned that while the township cannot ban these types of operations, it can introduce regulations that make it less attractive for them to be set up in Asphodel-Norwood. As such, we are in favor of a bylaw amendment that will restrict the potential proliferation of cannabis production processing in Asphodel-Norwood. Sincerely, Graham Saunders. Moving on, we did receive correspondence. This was dropped off at the municipal office. It is from Will and Bernadette Vanderhorst, dated September 16th, 2020. It is addressed to the Township of Asphodel-Norwood CAO Clerk Candace White and the mayor and each member of council. We have grave concerns about the recent establishment of cannabis production facility in the township and hope that the Council of Asphodel-Norwood will take all steps possible to deter any organization or entity from establishing a production or processing facility for cannabis. The current proposed zoning amendments with the 150-meter setback minimum requirement and designated to RU and A zones do not go far enough. Our wish would be the Council of Asphodel-Norwood follow in the footsteps of Trent Hills Council that enacted an interim control bylaw on August 4th, 2020, that no new cannabis production or processing facility be permitted in the next year on land with any other designation than industrial zoning. The year that the interim bylaws in effect would give the municipality, council, and the public community time to strengthen bylaws, which is fair to both growers and the community. We clearly understand that this is a challenging issue for council because the federal government does the licensing for cannabis production. Unfortunately, as we are sure you are all aware, it's difficult to know which facility is legal and which is not. And what we understand from other municipalities' experiences is that even licensed cannabis production facilities exceed the production quantity that they are licensed for, and this becomes illegal cannabis for the street market and not the medical and government regulated market. We are certain that the negatives of cannabis production or processing far outweigh the positives for the township of Asphodel-Norwood. Grow ops buy up large tracts of agricultural land and cause the price of farmland to go beyond the reach of mainstream farmers. What we have observed thus far is that these large cannabis production facilities use greenhouses on a small portion of the property, and the rest of the agricultural land sits unused. Much of the labor used to facilitate production is not local. The owner-operators of these facilities are in it for a fast buck and have no regard for the community at large. Past experience would strongly suggest that these cannabis facilities will bring an unwanted criminal element to the community, with not only illegal production of cannabis, but weapons and human trafficking of migrant workers. The new branding is Asphodel-Norwood, a growing success. The township is currently enjoying many successes, with many new homes being built and many new residents joining our friendly small town community. If council does not take a decisive action to deter cannabis production processing from establishing in Asphodel-Norwood, much of this new residential growth may come to a complete stop. Finally, we would urge council to enact an interim bylaw for a year restricting cannabis production processing to industrial zones only, like Trent Hills Municipality has done. This would give the authorities the tools to crack down on startups of these cannabis production processing facilities. This would give the municipality time to review policies with the public and federal government, which is reviewing this legislation in 2021. We are including a copy of a news article from the Ontario Farmer Weekly that describes experiences of Trent Hills and Crammy Township. Thank you, Will and Bernadette Vanderhorst. I will not be reading the news article. There is also a letter that has been received by Ms. Karen Hartley. The address is 15 4th Line Road, Dummer South, from Duro Dummer. So I guess this is in a neighboring municipality potentially. Dated September 20th, 2020, proposed zoning bylaw amendment for cannabis production and processing facilities. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to permit cannabis production and processing facilities in Asphodel-Norwood Township. My home is near a new cannabis facility in Asphodel Township. There are at least 10 greenhouses built on this rural lot and more under construction. Although the greenhouse complex is not under full production, the neighborhood is already experiencing noxious odors from the operations. Aside from odors, I am concerned about the impacts of this type of intensive operation on water quality and quantity and the natural environment. This particular operation is on a rural lot with a native brook, trout stream, and wetlands that are zoned environmental protection. Water demand, wastewater, and stormwater runoff from an intensive development of this nature have the potential to significantly impact these sensitive values, as well as to deplete groundwater and surface water sources on which neighboring properties rely. The proposed bylaw amendment is inadequate to control these types of effects from cannabis facilities on rural neighborhoods or to mitigate negative environmental impacts. More needs to be done to protect rural and agricultural residents from odors and other impacts, and to assure that this kind of development fits in with the rural character of surrounding land uses. This includes such measures as increasing setbacks and applying them to all residences, not only those in residential, institutional, and commercial zones, as well as limiting the size and scale of these operations. In addition, provisions should be included to protect groundwater and surface water, control stormwater runoff, and treat wastewater to ensure no negative effects to neighboring wells or aquatic ecosystems. She also states some recommendations. Proposed new subsections 10.2.11, 11.2.11, and 14.2.11. The list of zones from which cannabis facilities should be separated does not protect residents of rural and agricultural lands, include dwellings and/or agricultural and rural zones in the list of zones from which cannabis facilities should be separated to address this deficiency. While separation of cannabis facilities from these zones is beneficial, 150 meters is insufficient to mitigate the impacts from odors. This distance should be increased and applied as a minimum. Include provisions for maximum lot coverage of less than 10%, to limit stormwater runoff and impacts to groundwater infiltration from converting vegetable cover to hardened surfaces. This threshold is consistent with recommendations by Environment Canada that watersheds should have less than 10% impervious cover to maintain aquatic ecosystems. That she's sourcing Environment Canada 2013, how much habitat is enough. Her other final recommendation, adopt provisions for cannabis cultivation and processing facilities that are in the Peterborough County Official Plan for Selwyn Township. Examples of provisions include cannabis cultivation and processing facilities should be subject to site plan control, no negative impacts on the enjoyment and privacy of neighboring properties, maintenance of the rural character of the area, appropriate mitigation of impacts of noise and odor on adjacent land uses, no negative impacts on groundwater and surface water quantity and quality, appropriate stormwater and wastewater management. We received another letter dated September 21st from Sandra Hugginson. It is addressed to myself, the CAO clerk, as well as the mayor and each member of council. I have concerns around allowing a cannabis processing facility in Asphodel-Norwood and are opposed to such a bylaw. My concerns are many, ranging from a drain on township resources to crime and odor. Firstly, these facilities require uninterrupted high wattage electricity and have a high water usage. How will this demand affect the local residents, farmers, and businesses? The process also involves chemical extraction, and I understand due to the volatility of the solvents, it carries a high risk of explosion. Are we able to ensure that regulations are in place and being followed to avoid danger to nearby residents and businesses? It is also felt there's potential to increase crime, burglary, theft, or more serious offenses. Allowing such a facility could send the wrong message to residents, including youth, that we are supportive of this type of business, which could lead to increased use, abuse, and addiction. It is understood the odor from these facilities can possibly trigger allergies and asthma in some, while plain unpleasant odor to others, a resident in Pelham, Ontario complained. She provides a couple of quotes. Dave Ireland is frustrated by the skunk smell of pot that wafts down from two cannabis cultivation facilities roughly 5 kilometers away and lingers outside his home even in the winter. On hot, humid days, it's worse because they have to vent more often. You wouldn't be able to open your windows. Finally, a question how this will affect property values and possibly deter future growth in Asphodel-Norwood. While I recognize the attractiveness and financial gain from such a facility in Asphodel-Norwood, I feel the potential negatives outweigh the positives and would not be beneficial to our community. Then we have comments from Kevin English, a resident of the township. I understand that this is a federal and provincial level issue and appreciate the local township council and staff taking steps to put regulations in place. I would appreciate the members of council lobbying the federal government to prompt Health Canada to amend their policies and procedures to prevent a cannabis licensee from using their license on more than one property. I would appreciate the members of council lobbying the federal and provincial governments on the negative impacts cannabis has on the family farming community. A consistent approach to regulating the appropriate land use for this industry is needed instead of downloading it to the lower municipalities. Everyone needs to understand that cannabis is being treated as an agricultural crop, but it isn't. It takes 9.6 acres of soybeans to experience the same financial gain as 4 potted cannabis plants. And finally, we received written correspondence via an email from Todd and Jennifer Payne, again, township residents, and it's addressed to Asphodel-Norwood Council. We are very concerned about the recent activity in the township regarding production and processing of cannabis. While the federal government of Canada has legalized these activities, it falls upon municipal government to regulate such activities within one's municipality. As council deliberates how these regulations will look for the municipality of Asphodel-Norwood, we would like to communicate our concern with the current bylaw amendment, ZBLA-04-2020. We have specific concern with the following. Prohibit cannabis production facilities and cannabis processing facilities from locating within 150 meters of any residential zone, institutional zone, or commercial zone. Our concern here is our family home is located on agricultural zone land, as are countless other farm family homes in the township. The bylaw as proposed could allow a cannabis production and processing facility to be placed next door to our home or many other farm family homes in the township. The reputation that these facilities have is not a positive environment for a family to live beside. Complaints of bad odors and pungent smells, as well as ultraviolet light pollution from greenhouses, are commonplace. We encourage council to think about this clause in detail and would suggest amendments such as adding any residential dwelling for setback distance and increasing setback distance from the proposed 150 meters to 500 meters. Please do not rush this bylaw through, mayor and councilors. Sincerely, Todd and Jennifer Payne. So some of these, those who expressed interest to put their written comments out on the public agenda were given a very generous timeline that put us a bit under the wire to get the agendas out. And then we also received other written comments after, but obviously once the agenda's out, we can't add more comments to it. So that is why we took them right up to 10 o'clock this morning and chose to read those aloud to ensure that council was aware of everyone's opinion that wanted to put one forward. A couple of quick things. The lot fabric of the township was also taken into consideration extensively through this process. The fact that 74 to 75% of our municipality is agricultural based activity, is agricultural land. Outside of that 75%, we have a very small pocket of industrial land basically in the center of our village. That is surrounded by residential homes. So the makeup of our facility is quite simple from a consultant and from, as pointed out by our land use planning solicitor, who approved and ensured that the township was being compliant for all legalities in the proposed zoning bylaw. He has reviewed it, went back and forth with township staff. Ultimately, there's things in this bylaw that are going to be tough to enforce on a day-to-day basis, but they are defendable from a township position. If we were challenged in a court setting or in an LPAT setting in the future, we can defend the position of this zoning bylaw as we used existing criteria that have been put in place, such as the D6 series guidelines for industrial setbacks. They were used as a guideline, and they have governed all industrial setbacks in the province for many years. That is all I have to say, Mayor, unless there's, any questions from council. We may want to go to the meeting record and to the residents to see if anybody wishes to speak.
Council, you have a chance here if you want to talk to what Ed's report had to say there, and go if you any questions. Councillor Ward, please.
Through you, Mayor. A question to add about the site plan control. And I'm wondering right now, we're only looking at indoor growing facilities. Is that like in greenhouses, or would it be outside as well? And with that, would there be an increased inspection from your point of view to make sure that there would be carbon filters in place to reduce odors, and that water usage was not above what could be tolerated?
Yes, so the site plan control bylaw gives us authority to request various items. We can request carbon filters. We can request fencing, depending on the circumstances of what is brought forward. So if there's a metal clad building with metal doors and a metal roof, it may not need fencing compared to a greenhouse, would be very easily accessed from the public. So that would need to be fenced, and there will be security monitoring required, that type of stuff. And the licenses that they are granted also has a lot of different requirements too. And so depending on the scope, so if the project requires, thousands of plants is put forward, then a hydrogeological report would be required. And if it's a small scale operation, then maybe if they use a liter of water per plant every day or every other day, depending on the number of liters of waters, that would drive what's really required regarding water. So all of these facilities that I've been aware of so far the plants are planted in pots. So there is no disturbance of the soil. There's no disturbance, and it's of really anything other than they construct greenhouses or a warehouse style building, and then they install all these plants with the soil and the fertilizer, and then they grow them, and then they bring them to fruition so that the crop can be harvested. I'm sure as time goes on, we will learn different things that have happened in other townships or in other areas or in our own township. But today I feel confident that since we have site plan control for these facilities, we really can ask for and require pretty much anything that's reasonable. So to protect the from odors and to protect from over water consumption, that type of thing. So say if 2 years down the road, all of a sudden there's a bad smell, and we go out to the site and we notice that we have a bad smell, then they're in contravention of the site plan control bylaw that's registered on title of their property, and it's a legal matter for us to deal with to get them to put back in the filters in order to get it up and running. So in other areas, I've seen some facilities that have had hundreds, if not thousands of plants, and there's been absolutely zero odor. And I mean zero odor, and that's only with 2 carbon filters. The filters are like 3 feet long and they're about 1 foot in diameter. They're not connected to the outdoors. The air goes in one end and out the other end. It's like a tube, and it purifies the air through the carbon process. So I really don't believe that odors will be an issue unless it's an enforcement issue later on to get them to renew their filters, that type of thing. But if the legal operations are coming forward with legal licenses and going through the process of site plan control and complying with our zoning bylaw amendment, then the legal operations, I think, will comply with the rules. So a lot of the concerns raised are from the illegal operations.
Which is the OPP's mandate to govern. And we are inconsistent. I was speaking to a representative of the OPP as of 9 o'clock last night. They are in consistent communication with the township, and the township staff will do everything we can to assist and support them in taking down or taking out any illegal activity from cannabis related uses that occur in the township.
Sorry, through you, Mayor, if I may have one follow-up.
Yes, you may.
Okay, I was just curious, because of these are agricultural based businesses, would they be allowed to have a farm stand? Like, there wouldn't be a point of sale from that facility at all, right? I'm correct in that? Can't be.
They're not allowed to get point of sale based on their licensing, no.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that there would be nothing like that.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great question. Deputy Mayor Burt.
Yes, thank you very much, through you, Mayor. And I just have some comments. Do I have a time limit?
No.
Okay.
No,
okay.
This is a very important topic for our township, and the more discussion we can have, the better, I believe.
Okay, yeah, and I'm sure there'll be lots here. And I want to echo Candace's really regards to the township with the amount of calls and emails certainly the staff have received, and certainly I received. Everyone has been very much engaged, and I didn't keep track of my hours. They weren't as much as Candace's, but I did. I've got a very thick folder here, plus what's on my laptop. And I think I've learned more about cannabis production than I ever wished I would want to learn about it. One thing that I do want to bring up, and I will bring it up in new business, And whether it helps or not, I don't know, but I do believe we need to send letters to the offices of our MP, MPP, Minister of Ag, both federally and provincially, just to state our concerns. And I think the biggest thing is when growers are licensed within our municipality or any municipality, we are not given notice. That is supposed to be up to the owner of the facility, and that is not happening. So already they're in contravention of bylaws and site plan control. So I feel that Health Canada needs to let us know when a producer is licensed in our township. So I really think that that is important, and yes, it should be on the license holder, but it's obviously not happening. And I think we need to know, because if we don't know, how do we enforce the bylaw on site plan control? So that's number one. And I think that I would bring that up in new business for staff to draft a letter to those individual offices, but I'll get clarification of that after. I like the 2% land use. 100 acres, 2 acres is under production. I do like that. I think, and I know we can't force this, but if there's a 100-acre farm sold, 2 acres is under cannabis production. It would be nice to encourage those landowners to use local farmers to continue farming the workable land. Obviously, that's not mandated, but it would be nice if that would happen. We do have site plan controls in place, so I think we're ahead of the ball in that game. That was done back in July. I'm wondering, and I don't know, Ed or Candace, if you can help me with that. Are regular inspections done by Health Canada or a registered third party on these legal operations? From what I could see, it looked like every 3 years they kind of look at their license, but there's a lot of agricultural commodities that are inspected on a regular basis. Certainly dairy, even maple syrup, we have people come in. So I'm just wondering if you know about inspections from Health Canada.
I can state a couple of things. I'm not an expert on the Health Canada provisions, but I do know a couple of things. One, the inspections on the processing side, which would be more comparable to, like, say, a maple syrup type establishment, that sort of thing. The processing facilities see way more inspection than the production growing of the crop itself.
Okay.
And that's where it's dictated through the licensing. So that's where you're seeing the 3 years. But a processing facility that's processing any sort of anything, whether it's food or drink that's going to be consumed by people, then obviously there's an increased inspection regime that goes along with that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And am I able to?
Yes.
I'll just keep going, and then I'll leave the floor. I do think from Health Canada that these license groups, they need to be compliant with all regulations, not just federal, but the municipal ones before a license is issued, and that doesn't seem to be the case. So I think it's important for Health Canada, they should really be working in conjunctions with municipality, the MOE if a water taking permit is needed, and the Conservation Authority and local law enforcement. And it feels like we're working in silos on this, and we are. It doesn't feel like it, we are. And I think that needs to change. I think as we move forward, it will. But I do think that's a big issue. Going through the application process, they do have personal security clearances. There's supposed to be security plans and record keeping of all partners and investors. And I'm just wondering where that stands. And one thing I just want to touch on, as far as non-food land use in agriculture, it's always been it's always been a bit of an issue, I think, but we certainly have it in agriculture. A few years ago, a big thing was growing corn for ethanol and that it wasn't being used for food. And we've kind of gotten over that. And certainly there's a lot of acreage that goes into the horse business. And I love horses, don't call me on it. But certainly that's sorry, Wilbur. But certainly that's, that's something, Christmas trees and greens, the grains and hops and vines for alcohol production, which is not it is a consumable product, but it is not a food product. And so the list goes on and on. So this is new. And this is not an easy position to be in when it is something that's new. Staff have done an incredible amount of work on this. The one concern I have is the setback of 150 meter. I'm just questioning what does it look like to increase that 150 meter? The maximum is 500 meters. Maybe there's a middle ground there that we can find. And I did like the question from Jennifer and Todd Payne to a residential dwelling. So I kind of want to know what that looks like as well. So either Ed or Candace, if they could answer that question for me, and then I'll let the rest of council speak. I'm sorry I spoke so long.
Go ahead, whoever wants to answer, if you can, on that one.
Ed, do you want to answer in regards to the residential dwelling? And I can take the setback of 150 meters.
Okay, so the setback to a residential dwelling makes sense if you have an adjoining farm that house is on that side of the property, that the minimum setback could again be the 150 meters, which is the 500 feet away. And it's almost I don't want to say it's like irrelevant, but when we make them go through site plan control, if we have a building that's 500 feet away or 100 feet away, like farm buildings require 100-foot setbacks for or MDS setbacks. If we have odor control, and I'm not quite sure what the issues are going to end up being, that it's located close to another farmhouse, other than the odor. Like, to me, it's a real skunk odor. And so if we deal with the odor, is that enhanced setback just so that the building is actually a little bit farther away because we know that there's cannabis being grown in it? Or what would the purpose serve to have that farther away? Like if your farm, you wanted to have a drive shed put on your property, would we want to have an enhanced setback to it because it's a farm building, like farther than what's required? Or, is it just because of the use of it being cannabis? What if it was garlic, or what if it was onions, or what if it was some specialty crop? We don't have setback requirements for those other than the standard 100-foot setbacks, where this is 150 meters to any residential, commercial, or institutional. Existing farms coincide now together, side by side in the rural area throughout the entire township. So I don't know whether it would actually be required or not, but it certainly can be implemented into our zoning bylaw to say that a cannabis facility would require a 150 setback to a residential dwelling not located on the same property. Like,
yeah, you can have a follow-up there, Lori, please.
Yeah, just to follow up. So it is easily doable to do that. I guess I'm thinking of redundancy plan. If the filters quit, or I don't know, it just it makes sense to me. I like the idea, and I'm just wondering if it can be done. And yeah, anyway, I would certainly invite the rest of council to hear their thoughts on that too. And then, of course, Candace was going to follow up with the increased setbacks as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so there was heavy discussion with the township land use planning solicitor in regards to the setbacks. The setback of 150 meters, which is 500 feet, has been chosen following the D6 series guidelines. As when we went through the checklist, we do have that checklist. It is defendable. We are looking at that this is a different type of use. It would be defendable in a court action, but our entire goal here is to ensure that all industries can coexist together, that site plan control provisions are in place. And it seems like we make more provisions and have more discussions around these documents live forever. So we can change them consistently, but a zoning bylaw will always exist. A site plan control bylaw will always exist. An illegal cannabis production will not always exist. And we are putting more thought and care into making this document govern illegal operations. And that's not what we're doing today. We're governing legal operations. Someone that has literally put a check mark in every single box and is required to grow medical marijuana as an agricultural crop in the township of Asphodel-Norwood because the federal government said it's okay. What we're not doing and what we're not being naive to is that there will be or potentially could be illegal cannabis activity in any municipality across the province. That is up to the township to become aware of, keep our eyes and ears to the ground. And then we call the OPP and they go in and it's a criminal activity and it's their mandate to shut it down. Our planning documents can't start planning all criminal activities because I can tell you that if that's going to be what we're doing, that we should be taking a strong look at some other zones in our township that we've seen more criminal activity on than cannabis. So we need to ensure that the policies that we put in place are for legal operations because that's what we govern. We're not going to be permitting anything illegal here. And then we need to ensure that site plan control is going to be able to provide for all of the nuisances to the next door neighbors. I'm not opposed to increasing the 150 meter setback to a residential dwelling on an adjacent property if that creates a level of comfortability for council and the residents of the township. By all means, 500 meters is not defendable and it's not reasonable. That's half a kilometer. And there's no setback. Like when you look at the D6 series guidelines of 500 meters, like we would lose in a court of law for sure. It's not necessarily that would be governed as or looked at as reasonable from my perspective. So if you want to take a look at adding a residential dwelling on an adjacent property to the 150 meter setback provision, I would support council in that for sure.
Okay.
Can I just have one follow-up on that? So the D6 series guidelines, the 150 meters is defensible. Can you stretch that to 200? I know it's a mitigation of risk, and I get that, and it's where we end up in a court of law or an LPAT, and I'm just wondering where those legal ramifications, how can you stretch that out?
Council can do whatever they'd like, and it'll be up to the lawyers to get in the court and defend us to the best of their ability. But ultimately the goal is to manage the risk in advance of these decisions. Okay. Right. So there was a lot of care and control and conversation and thoughts with the province, with lawyers, with consultants, with everyone to come up with the 150 meters. 500 feet, that's a long way. When you go out to your front yard, and look at your house, I guarantee you, and you look out towards the road or you figure out what 500 feet is from your house, in a rural setting that could be treed through it. Like it's, you know, 500 feet is a long way. If council feels more comfortable increasing that to 200 meters, and that is the decision you make, then staff will fully support that decision and implement it and advise the upper tier and the solicitor that that's what the decision that was made, for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, if I can, Mayor, through you. Ed, just a quick question. Within that zoning bylaw amendment, can we add in there that on top of adhering to that, that you would also need to be adhering to a site plan control bylaw? So that they're aware that there really is two levers we have to kind of control this. As we said, we can't stop it from coming, we can regulate it. So one is the zoning bylaw amendment that we're discussing today. The second part to that is the site plan control bylaw. Can that be mentioned anywhere in the zoning bylaw amendment that, you know, it's just not the zoning bylaw amendment you got to get through, you've also got to get through a site plan control bylaw with us as well?
Well, generally, when an inquiry comes in, we would give them a checklist of what they would need to do. So they have to comply with all applicable laws. The first step is for to go through to make sure that the zoning would permit it, and then can you meet the zoning requirements? If you can't meet the zoning requirements, then you'd have to go through possibly an official plan amendment and probably a zoning bylaw amendment. And subject to having zoning that would permit you to do this operation, then you would have to go through your site plan control application and that process. And you can't go through site plan control if you don't comply with zoning. So it's like step one is zoning. Step two would be site plan control. Then it would be registered on title. Then it would be a building permit process where you'd have to comply with all the other agencies. But in the meantime, if you went through zoning, everything is circulated to the agencies. If you go through site plan control, again, we circulate everything to the agencies like ORCA or MTO or the county roads or whatever the various authorities are out there.
Okay.
So,
So basically, if somebody comes and inquires, they're basically being made aware that step one, zoning bylaw amendment, you got to check that box off. If you do, then you got to check off a site plan control bylaw. Okay, so they're fully aware that those, and for us, those are really our two controls that we have in place to help really regulate cannabis.
Yes.
Okay,
that is our control, our regulations.
Okay, Roger, if I can, just a couple more questions and I'll be done. I just want to echo what Deputy Mayor Burt said. In terms of maybe it comes up under new business, but I think we do have to make sure that our MP and MPP and the upper tiers are aware of their kind of position and they're putting us in, that we do need to be advised when these licenses are happening. We need more support from them on the regulation of it instead of it just kind of landing in our lap and trying to figure it out on our own. And I'm sure, you know, we've done a lot of work in the background to put this together today, but I think they need to be made aware that they can be a little bit more supportive of what they've been in the past. Next comment is in regard to the 2% land use. I love that idea. Would also hope that during our discussions with anybody coming forward that we do encourage them to use the rest of that land, reach out to local farmers that could potentially use the rest of that land versus it just being sitting there and potentially doing nothing. I'm also supportive of relooking at the setbacks beyond the 150 meters. If we think 200, 250 is still, we feel, a balanced approach, I would be very supportive of that. And just lastly, similar with Deputy Mayor Burt around Todd Jen Payne's request, I would also be supportive of that residential dwelling out on agricultural land, that, you know, we need to be respectful of that 150 meter setback there as well.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Ed, you want to follow up on that?
Yes, we are really looking at pushing the setback farther and farther for a cannabis production facility, for like a greenhouse, where we have a ton of control going through site plan control with the carbon filters and the lighting and anything else that parking and dust and storage and all that type of stuff. I don't know if it makes sense for us to push the setback farther than the 150 meters when you can grow the outdoor crop within 50 meters of the lot line.
Right.
But you want to push a building that we have all kinds of control over farther than 150 meters. So outdoor growing would be more of an issue than an indoor growing facility where we have registered on title an agreement that they've signed that they have to comply with. But again, we will write into the document whatever the setback is that council approves.
Okay. Thank you, Ed.
Good point. Good point, Ed. There, thanks. Councillor Ward, please.
Through you, Mayor. Sorry, I have a couple more questions.
That's good.
I just wanted to reiterate that this zoning bylaw that we're doing, it can be amended, that it's a starting point, that, you know, things may change. The second one, the 2% mandated land use, is that like a government suggested, or can it be 1%? And would that also include outdoor crops if it was 1%? And the other one was, how many inquiries do we get, like has the township received for any of this? Those are my questions.
Whoever wants to answer, go ahead, Ed.
Okay, we make it a half a dozen inquiries a year or so,
Yeah.
thereabouts. The inquiries have been coming in now for a number of years.
Yeah.
Since the federal law was passed.
Yeah.
The 2% lot coverage, we thought was a very reasonable percentage, where a lot have reduced, some municipalities have 10%. So I don't know if 2% is restrictive enough, or whether you think that 1% is better for a facility. As far as outdoor crops being governed, the province, the federal government, OMAFRA, and everybody has repeatedly told us this is a permitted agricultural crop. For us to come out and say, yep, we're only going to allow you to grow it maybe on 2% of your land, the chances of us being able to defend that may not be quite so good.
That's it, Ed. You said it. Councillor Archer, please.
If you're allowed to grow your outdoor crops 50 meters, do you, is it governed under the site plan control too, or do we have any control over that? Like,
no control over outdoor crops.
so they can grow 50 meters back, and the only control we have on site plan is for the buildings then, correct?
Correct. So today they can grow right up to the lot line.
Ed, just for my own sake, would that not all have to be fenced properly too?
That would be subject to the provincial licenses that they're granted. So of course they wouldn't just be able to grow 40, 60 acres of cannabis. They would have to have a license to do everything that they're doing. It would have to be legal. So it would need to be fenced. It would need to have monitoring, security, all kinds of things would have to go through on their licensing. It would have to be a legal operation.
Just no site plan control.
So site plan control only applies to processing facilities and production facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
Candace, go ahead.
Through all of the research and discussions that we've had in the past months, we have learned that outdoor cannabis operations in most areas are rare. just due to security provisions, the climate in our area, et cetera. It's not impossible, but you won't see them next to busy highways or next to really close to adjacent properties, and not going to see a whole lot of legal outdoor crops through licensing probably in our area. That's quite an investment for them to make to be succumb to Mother Nature. They're not impossible. It is definitely something we could potentially see. As of right now, if the zoning bylaw amendment doesn't get passed and someone purchases a piece of agricultural property and wishes to plant cannabis, they can plant it right up to the property line with no setback.
Yeah.
So again, that setback is up for council discussion. It's also important to know that staff isn't necessarily here advocating for the zoning bylaw amendment. We're here to educate council and let them know that due diligence has been done, research has been done. We have spoke to everyone we need to speak to in order to ensure that the township is covered from a risk and liability perspective. Then it's our job to bring that into the political arena at a council meeting and allow you guys to take a look at it. If you choose to not follow, the recommendation is just based on the education that staff has received. If council wishes to not follow suit with the recommendation and make changes based on their own opinion and their own feeling of today, by all means, that is, you are able to do that. We're not here, we're not advocating fully for the zoning bylaw amendment. I can tell you that I am advocating to have some sort of care and control of the cannabis activity in this township, because right now we have none. So I do ask you to consider putting something forward so that we have something to work with. We have site plan control, and to be all honest with you, that's a heavier hammer than zoning will ever be. So we already have that in place. So this is just to assist us with that, with a further care and control and regulation. Again, we're not allowed to prohibit it, and this is the best course of action for the township. But when it comes to the setbacks and all of the 2% lot coverages and the specific provisions in the draft are all based on recommendations of either land use planning solicitors or consultants or upper tier, like through consultation, to ensure that the township's in a defendable position if challenged through the courts or if challenged through LPAT. That doesn't mean that we couldn't have a defendable position with a different setback or a different lot coverage percentage. We are extremely restrictive at 2%. We are the most restrictive. 10% is the average for lot coverage. That is what you see. We have 10% already in our zoning bylaw for other zoning, for other zones. We have 10%, we have 80%. So the 2% is restrictive because based on conversation, we felt that's what council would want to see.
Yeah, thank you for that, Candace. I know I'm just going to say that these are coming, and we're just trying to get the township ready for it and to prepare ourselves legally as well as professionally. I mean, we are open for business, but we want to have smart business too. So Councillor Walsh, please.
Through you, Mayor. Candace, just one quick question. Again, we're taking a very balanced approach, which I love. We feel we're defendable at 2%?
Oh, yes.
Or do we think
well,
we could be challenged?
We're taking manageable risk at 2%. Complete defendability would have been at 10.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Candace, just further to that, if we get this done now to that point, then we're protected, because that could discourage to a certain extent people from wanting to come in if they already know what our bylaws are set at. It's just the fact is we didn't have anything to protect our township at that time or this time until today or whenever we get this figured out. But anyways, if we move on with the meeting here, Deputy Mayor, one more comment, I guess.
Yeah, and it is just a comment. I just, in light of the outdoor growing, just from a lot of reading and research that I've done, the outdoor growing is very difficult, mainly due to pest control. And I think it's a very expensive way to grow this crop. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So.
Well, thanks for that. So Candace, this is something new for us with this public meeting. Is there still some residents online that are willing to talk here with us yet? Can you see that?
Yeah, if there's any residents that would like to verbally speak, please raise your hand.
Yeah, so raising your hand now, you can't actually see them and we can't see them on our screen. So if anyone can't raise their electronic hand on the computer, we have Melanie here that may be able to walk you through that. Maybe
Mayor,
just, yes.
we do have 2 hands that have been raised. I'm going to allow Sandra Hugginson to speak.
Okay, Sandra, you're on air then.
Computer. I appreciate your time and effort that you've put into this topic from this.
I can't hear you at all. I'm sorry. I
don't think that's Sandra.
I appreciate, it's Kevin English.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's Kevin English. I appreciate your time and effort that you've obviously put into this topic. I am a 7th generation farming in Asphodel Township since 1823. I'm very concerned about our township and our drinking water. I feel the water needs to be metered like our golf course in our township. I'd appreciate that if that was added into it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin, for your comments, and thanks for your letter or your conversation you had with our CAO in the last week or so. So thanks for that. Candace, I'll have to leave it up to you. If somebody else has a raised hand, that please ask them to state their name and to come forward.
Yes, just 1 minute, please. So I have muted Mr. English, and next in line would be the Vanderhorst family. So the Vanderhorst family, can you hear us?
Right now, you'd be muted. There you go.
Hello, Candace.
Yes, yes.
Council, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much, Will.
Yeah. So Bernadette and I are both here. Since our letter that we wrote to council, we have dug a little deeper into this topic. In our letter, we proposed to council that they adopt an interim control bylaw for a year that would give council more time to research this topic and have more public dialogue. We have found out that many municipalities in the province of Ontario have adopted this approach. Some of the examples would be Port Colborne, Lincoln, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Welland, and the town of Pelham. Some of these municipalities adopted their interim control bylaw for a year in 2018 and have since made amendments to their zoning bylaw. I can tell you that some of the setbacks in those municipalities are 300 meters, where we're proposing 150 meters, and where we're proposing 50 meters, they have adopted 200 meters. So a considerable bigger setback than we're looking at. The 150 meters is a minimum. More importantly, we have learned that 4 municipalities in the county of Northumberland have adopted an interim control bylaw for a year to have more dialogue with the public and to learn more about the topic. So the municipality of Trent Hills, Crammy, Hamilton Township, and Alnwick Haldeman have all adopted an interim control bylaw for a year to research this topic. I would point out that Deputy Mayor Burt mentioned the word silos. You know, this council feels like they're working in silos. Maybe it would be best for our council to take the same approach as some of the other municipalities in our region so that we can all work together on zoning bylaws that would be consistent. We particularly think this is important because the 4 municipalities in Northumberland County all fall within the same federal electoral boundaries and provincial electoral boundaries. And we know that we have to dialogue with our federal MP, Philip Lawrence, and our provincial MPP, David Passini. And if we work with these other municipalities and all are talking from the same page, we would have a much stronger voice. We feel this would be very important. It's important that to our community that we get this right and we take the time to do the research extensively. I know that our staff have worked hard on this and I applaud their efforts. But the bylaws need to be solid, and I think there needs to be some consistency with our other parts of Central Ontario. And finally, I think there's been some good questions and some good dialogue here today, but I'd ask councillors, are you really comfortable to make that decision today? Specifically when we know, and Ed, you mentioned this, even the production facilities that we have here in the township now have not directly contacted our staff or council. Okay, we can put a lot of bylaws and site plans in place, but if these organizations are not going to work with us, it's going to be tough to make them comply. And I think that's the frustration that we've heard in talking to some of these other municipalities in Northumberland County. And that is the frustration we need to take to those upper tier levels of government. And we need to work consistently with those other municipalities. So we're still urging you not to implement the zoning bylaws that you're looking at, but to implement an interim bylaw for cannabis production and processing, much the same as the municipalities in Trent Hills or in Northumberland County have done. Okay, that's my comments, our comments. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Will and Bernadette. Staff, did you have anything you wanted to say for this at all, or do we carry on with Sandra at this time?
No, I'm just waiting for someone else to, if anyone else wishes to raise their hand. If anyone, Melanie, are you able to describe how, in case someone is struggling behind the scenes, how to raise their hand?
You have to unmute, Melanie, so you can describe what you have to do.
Okay, sorry. So at the bottom of the web Zubinar, you may need to hover over the very bottom, but there will be a raise hand icon right in the middle. And when you click on it, it will turn to blue and say lower hand. So I see someone else has found it.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah, so I think you're good.
Thank you, Mel.
No problem.
Okay, Candace, if you want to do an introduction, then that would be great, please.
Okay. Graham, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank everybody for all the work they've been doing on this matter. I just wanted to make one comment. There was been some discussion about the setbacks and 150 meters sort of being a defendable number. It strikes me that the reason for having this bylaw is to make cannabis operations in our township unattractive, so that by and large growers and operators will go elsewhere. The 2% land usage, I understand, is very restrictive. I'm wondering why we wouldn't go with a more restrictive setback. And as I forget which gentleman said that one township has got a 300-meter setback. It just seems to me that it should be made as restrictive as we can possibly make it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Graham, for that. Any other hands up, Candace?
No, I don't see any more hands. Maybe if we want to give them going once.
So Melanie, you said at the
Twice.
bottom of the screen on the Zoom webinar near the middle, if you hover there, you'll see possibly a hand. If they want to click on it, they probably could get their hand up.
Twice. Okay, Mayor, I think we're safe to move on.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for all your comments.
You're muted.
Okay, sorry, I was muted there. Okay, so on to, so we're done with public comments. We're on to correspondence now then, I guess. Is that correct?
Yes, I
C1,
guess
C2?
Ed would like to make a comment, I guess.
I'm sorry, Ed, go ahead, please.
Yes, we have to read out the legal statements that if a person or public body does not make oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Asphodel-Norwood before the bylaw is passed, a person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood to the local planning appeal tribunal. And also, if a person or public body does not make oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Asphodel-Norwood before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. And one last clause is to be notified. If a person wishes to be notified of the decision for any of applications such as this, the person must make a written request to the Township of Asphodel-Norwood. So it's very important that everybody in tune today is aware of those two paragraphs.
Hey, thank you, Ed. Okay, correspondence then, as we're on to C1 and C2. So that's the rural planner, land use policy, stewardship, Ontario Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. And C2 would be the Ontario Federation of Agricultural position on cannabis production. Candace, what would we do with this then? Just receive?
A motion to receive for information, yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. So I'm looking for that motion then from Deputy Mayor Burt and Councillor Archer. All in favor? Unanimous hands. Thank you very much. So the recommendation, our CAO, I'll have you read that out for us then, please.
Yes, and once the recommendation, if once it's moved, it can go back on the floor for discussion and debate.
Yes, that's what I was asking for. Thanks.
Yep. That the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood recommends approval of zoning bylaw amendment ZBLA-04-2020, and further that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood direct staff to prepare a bylaw that will add the following definitions: a cannabis processing facility, a cannabis production facility, and outdoor cannabis cultivation. Permit cannabis processing facilities in the general industrial zone. Regulate cannabis production facilities in the rural RU zone and agricultural A zone, subject to the provisions of these zones. Prohibit cannabis production facilities and cannabis processing facilities in a dwelling. Prohibit cannabis production facilities and cannabis processing facilities from locating within 150 meters of any residential zone, institutional zone, or commercial zone. Prohibit outdoor signage or advertising, and prohibit any part of the use, including storage and accessory uses, from being located outside.
Okay, so that would basically be the motion then. So would we ask for a motion or shall we have discussion first?
The motion needs to be on the floor.
That's what I thought. So we'll have the motion then.
Discuss it, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll need a seconder and then we can have discussion.
And then the motion, if it doesn't sit as is, then it just fails and we put another motion forward, but it has to be on the floor to debate.
Right.
Put it on the floor.
Councillor Walsh makes the motion with probably a discussion. Need a seconder? Deputy Mayor Burt seconds it then, please. Okay. So Councillor Walsh, you're on the floor. Please have your discussion.
Yep, I think for me, there certainly has been some feedback regarding setbacks. I know we're trying to take the balanced approach, and we've set that 150 meters from a residential, institutional, or commercial zone. I would like to see that increased, and I would put on the floor a 250 meter number under that section.
Okay, anything else that you want to add to that or not?
Nope, that's fine at this point.
Okay. And Deputy Mayor Burt, did you want anything to say on this too?
Yeah, I just wanted, in addition to the residential, institutional zone or commercial zone, the wording of residential dwelling as well to be added. And where does the 2% land use come in? Where do we see that?
It's in the bylaw itself.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. So it doesn't have to be in this section, it's in the bylaw itself.
If council wants to amend the 2% to something else, then we are going to add it to this. We will be adding it to this section. I would like it added for clarity.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure it's in this section. I'm good. I'm very good with the 2%. I do support the 250 meters from Councillor Walsh, and I think I just want to reiterate that this is a good point for us to be. If we were to wait a year, it's many tens of thousands in consulting fees, and there's been an awful lot of consultation and study and lawyers, and I think we're there, and knowing that we can add to this bylaw, change it, and work with upper levels of government. I do feel comfortable to answer a question from a previous resident. I do feel comfortable where we're sitting today. It's not going to please everyone, but I think we're where we need to be as a starting point. And that's my comment. And I'll be quiet from now on.
We're not at county council at this time. You can speak. Okay, sorry, Councillor Ward, please.
And through you, Mayor. I'm comfortable with the increase of the setback. I think that's a good thing. I would like to see the 2% lowered. I know that you think that's maybe the lowest around, but I think that we could be maybe 1.5%. I don't know. I think that deters people even more from using it as that for that facility. And I also, is there any place that we can put in water usage? Because I did like that comment, and it's one concern that I have.
The water use will be controlled in site plan control.
In site plan control, okay.
Because if they need a hydrogeological study, that's where it comes from. If the MOECP requires a permit, as one resident mentioned, similar to a golf course, etc., then the MOECP or the Public Board of Health, depending on which the amount of usage and what body would actually govern it, then under site plan control, that would be required.
Okay, I will just, I guess, open for discussion about the lowering the 2%. I don't know what people feel.
I'd like to speak on that just for a second. It's just, I do know that in consultation, with not saying much more than that, that anything else is going to be a tough one to battle out if it did happen to go that far. Staff could probably back me up on that one, but I do think that I understand where you're coming from. But we're also way at the low of the scale as far as the rest of the townships are concerned in the county, even though some are still being put off for 1 year, but it's still coming no matter how they like it. But it's open for open discussion. Any other councillors want to weigh in on that one? So raise your hand if you have another question or concern. Councillor Archer, please.
I think we should 2%, and And one other question I have, are we allowed to make pass a bylaw to be more than 50 meters for outdoor, or is that just the law that you have to stay with?
Nope, you can amend the bylaw to increase the 50-meter setback for outdoor.
Okay. Because I think we should increase that to the 150 meters from.
Is that an agricultural crop that we're talking there, that they would just grow in the open field? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so right now it says invoke a minimum front, side, and rear yard setback for outdoor cannabis cultivation in a rural zone, which is not beside sensitive uses described in subsection 3.3. So this would be farm to farm, rural to rural, egg to egg, because any outdoor cannabis that is next door to institutional, commercial, or residential is already a sensitive use, so it would force 150 meters.
Yeah.
But we can make it 150 meters across the board, if including but that would be from egg to egg, rural to rural.
Correct.
But we're already 150 meters from like anything that's sensitive uses, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there's really no reason to do that, no?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we're already at 150. It isn't 50 across the board like you were thinking. So we have 150 meters for the sensitive uses, but it's 50 meters when it's egg to egg, rural to rural. Ed, do you have anything to add there?
We also have to think about enforcement. So with enhanced setbacks, are we going to be trying to tell somebody that they can't plant their crop so close to the lot line and then spend legal monies to try to do that enforcement? When would we have the support of OMAFRA or the Agricultural Association to back
Well,
up? Like
essentially, whatever council adopts today, regardless as to the amendments to the recommendations, we will, as staff, give it our best effort to enforce, and we'll have to have the legal dollars to back it in the budget each year. That's, bottom line. So if council wishes to see it at the 50 meters or the 150 meters across the board for outdoor cultivation, period, then that is they have the ability to do that.
Just a comment then, Candace, just a comment.
You don't have to go through me.
Yeah, sorry. Farm to farm, so back to back, say, like, so if they back from one concession over to another concession, and one farmer has soya beans or corn growing, and then all of a sudden this fella is going to have his marijuana growing, basically, he still has to have a certain amount of fence that's there in order to secure it, on and on. But to be 150 meters away from that fella that's growing corn, that's like another whole concession over where his house is. It doesn't seem to make much sense that way, because there already is sensitive setbacks from houses and different areas that are already on farms if they're side to side, say. Did that make any sense? Over?
Lacking a diagram, yes.
Yeah. I think the regulation's already there that we have in place. This is just me speaking, but Councilor Walsh, anything further you want to add to that? Or
no, I'm comfortable with the 50 meters on the minimum front, side, and rear yards. I'd like to see that where we're noting it 150 meters, that we expand that one just a little bit more, and to Deputy Mayor Burt, the adding in the residential dwelling piece. I'm comfortable with that as well.
That's fine.
So, as there's been some discussion in regards to what neighboring municipalities are doing, and neighboring municipalities do what's in the best interest of them, and we support them, and we will be in consultation with all of them throughout. We talk to each other all the time. So there will be constant dialogue and communication. Council is going to ask for emails to go back and forth to the province and the federal government. There's been emails sent. My frustration level has been high in the last 6 months in regards to the lack of provincial and federal regulation and how they're expecting land use planning to solve a non-land use planning problem. And I have made that very clear. So more communication will not hurt, and working in conjunction with other municipalities to ensure that there's some sort of uniformity is a challenge. If you look at all of our zoning bylaws across the board, regardless of the sensitive uses, some of them have industry that we will never see that they consider a use. And some have very little agricultural property. Some have lots like us. Like each planning document, although we need some governing documents that set some setbacks, zoning bylaws are unique to each municipality. We do what's in the best interest of that municipality, and every planning application then comes forward. The more restrictive you make a bylaw, the more you will receive zoning bylaw amendment applications. So if someone wants to come in and say they want to have greenhouses on 4% of the lot coverage, they don't want to do 2%. So they come forward and they bring forward a zoning bylaw amendment application. Council considers it. If they turn it down and say no, then that is what triggers the potential LPAT suit. So that's why I kept saying the balanced approach is to ensure that we don't, trying to ensure that we're protecting prime agricultural land. We're regulating a permitted use. We have followed suit with all planning consultations, and to go back and further restrict it and prohibit it now based on all of our research isn't in the best interest of this township. So we have done our due diligence. The public has spoken. I think council has done a fantastic job today listening to the public and taking their concerns into consideration by still putting forward a fairly balanced approach to the zoning bylaw. And then we'll have to see when we start working with the other municipalities, or I shouldn't say continue working with the municipalities and see what's out there. And as we start to grow through this, and as we start to live through this new industry, we will need change. And that change will be through amendments to the zoning bylaw like we have done today. And I suspect we will see them in our future and could be the very near future. But in the meantime, we have a document that governs us today. So there is a motion on the floor that's seconded. I would like to reread and see where we're at, if that's okay, Mayor.
Yeah, you're going to add those extras in that were asked.
Got it all.
That were
Yep.
discussed. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood recommends approval of zoning bylaw amendment ZBLA-04-2020, and further that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood directs staff to prepare a bylaw that will add the following definitions: a cannabis processing facility, a cannabis production facility, and outdoor cannabis cultivation. Permit cannabis processing facilities in the general industrial M1 zone, regulate cannabis production facilities in the rural RU zone and agricultural A zone, subject to the provisions of these zones, prohibit cannabis production facilities and cannabis processing facilities in a dwelling, prohibit cannabis production facilities and cannabis processing facilities from locating within 250 meters of any residential zone, institutional zone, commercial zone, or residential dwelling, prohibit outdoor signage or advertising, prohibit any part of the use, including storage and accessory uses, from being located outside, limit the maximum lot coverage for a cannabis production facility in a rural RU zone to 2%, limit the maximum lot coverage for a cannabis production facility in an agricultural zone to 2%. And I would like, I don't see the, and invoke a minimum front, side, and rear yard setback for outdoor cannabis cultivation in a rural RU zone of 50 meters.
Okay.
Same for ag.
And yes, sorry. And limit invoke a minimum front, side, and rear yard setback for outdoor cannabis cultivation in an agricultural A zone of 50 meters.
Okay, not going to ask you to read that again. I think you're going to need a drink of water.
I'll read it again if I need to.
Okay, Councillor Walsh, you originally made the motion. Are you still good with that? Oh, Deputy
Yes.
Mayor Burt, you had a question?
I do. Could I request a recorded vote, please?
Yes.
It's been a while since we had one of them.
I think this is worthy of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Something told me to be ready for this. Just give me 1 second, please.
So as it stands, the mover and the seconder are still on board then with the change, the amendment to the motion, I take it, Candace, right?
Sorry, say that again.
I said the mover and the seconder for the amendment to the motion, would it still stand, or do we have to ask that again of them?
No, they've already moved and seconded the motion and went through discussion. The amended motion has been moved and seconded. They've let that stand. So now we go to recorded vote, and then we'll do the voting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So for the motion that was just read out, everyone is okay. Do you need it reread again?
I see no hands.
Okay. So Deputy Mayor Burt.
Yes. Oh.
Councillor Walsh.
Yes.
Councillor War.
Yes.
Councillor Archer.
Yes.
Mayor Bonneau.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. And before I call an adjournment to this public meeting, I want to thank all of the public. I want to thank especially the staff for the amount of hours that went into this, and the amount of, I'm surprised you still have an ear on your head that holds the phone there, but a lot went into this. Nothing was taken lightly, for sure, on any of this, and we appreciate everyone having their input to this, from either phoning in or writing a letter or just talking to us on the street about it. But thank you, staff, very much for your time and effort. So I'm going to call a motion to adjourn this public meeting at 3:46, and then at the adjournment, then we'll be returning to our regular council meeting. We'll resume after. Motion, please. Deputy Mayor Burt and Councillor War, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, now we're back to our regular council meeting. Does anybody need to take a break for 2 minutes or so, or we just carry on as here we go? If we did take a break, we'd have to make a motion on that for sure. Seeing no hands, we're going to carry on. So we're into correspondence for action then. And Deputy Mayor Burt, you brought forward C1 and C2 for our correspondence for action. If you'd like to speak on C1 now, that would be good. Thank you.
Yeah, just on C1, I just wanted to send it out to everyone from the Ag Committee to thank all municipalities and those individuals who supported this bill. It took a fair bit of work to get it through, and it is now through. And I did go online and looked at the discussion paper. So if you want some interesting reading, you can certainly look at that. So I just wanted to pass my thanks along to the to our fellow counselors, because we did kind of help push that through. So that was my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Do you want a motion to receive that one, Candace, now? Is that what the proper procedure would be?
Yep.
Okay, looking for a motion to receive C1 then, please. Councillor Walsh, seconder. Councillor War, all in favor? That's carried, unanimous hands, thank you. Okay, C2 then, Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Actually, Candace had sent us some more information on the PCAD report and the low employment participation rate. So that did explain a fair bit. We did discuss this quite at length at County Council. And if you haven't checked out the workforce development boards, there's a map and listings of all the jobs that are available right in this region. And I did check it today, and in Peterborough City and County right now, there's 663 jobs that are listed. And it's quite an impressive board and map and information. So I just wanted to pass that along. And one thing that jumped out at me as well is the insurance rates for many tourism sectors have doubled, tripled, or higher since COVID. And on an industry that's already beat up, I don't know how more they can get beat up. For the insurance industry to throw this on them, it's pretty tough. I don't know from a municipal standpoint what we can do, but I just wanted to let fellow councillors know that this is what's happening. Some restaurants too, but certainly the tourism industry is being hit from all sides. So I just wanted to pass that information along. And if you have any suggestions about, obviously we don't control insurance rates, but maybe we can, I don't know, do something. So I just want to pass that along.
Yeah, thanks for that, Deputy Mayor Burt. I would suggest that council look into that. As far as staff looking into that about the extra jobs out there, please stay where you're at today. We still need you. Don't bother looking, okay? Thanks. Okay, so we're looking for a motion to receive that C2. Oh, sorry, Councillor Walsh.
Sorry, just a further comment, if I can, through you, Mayor. Again, just thanks to Candace for sending out that additional information, just to really kind of understand the labor force participation in our catchment area. And I think the other comment is I believe you do have an upcoming meeting with MP Munsef, and it's also indicated in that report that we just need to keep pushing on the remote internet. We need more, especially with COVID happening and more people working from home. We really need the both levels of government to keep moving that project forward.
Yes, sir. We agree. Okay, motion to receive that C2 report then, please. Deputy Mayor Burt and Councillor Archer, please. All in favor? And that's carried unanimous hands. Thanks. Okay, C8, St. Paul's Breakfast Club. The report is regarding a donation request. I take it, Candace, you'd speak on this one?
Yes, so the organizers of the Asphodel-Norwood Ministerial Food Bank are also the organizers of the St. Paul Breakfast Nutrition Program. Them, as long as the regional nutritional coordinator from the school board reached out to the township looking for a facility to ensure that this program can still continue, as most school boards have taken the position of either no volunteers or very limited volunteers. And even if they were allowed access, the volunteers are seniors. Most of them are seniors, I should say, and do not want to maybe be in the school environment every single day for vulnerability purposes. So all of that taken into consideration, the fact that it's the same volunteer base as the food bank, they have been granted permission to utilize the town hall to make little brown breakfast bags each morning, and then they're delivered to the school each morning, and then they're distributed at the school. don't know a lot of details as to what happens at the school level and what they do with the bags. We're only dealing with our facility. As it is the same volunteer group, we are not opening up the facility to any undue risk or exposure. That facility has been earmarked to ensure that we're providing vital services to the vulnerable, which are children and those families that utilize the food bank. So it seemed like a good fit, and when those agencies reached out. So that being said, I didn't want to just assume. The municipal control group, or the COVID-19 task force, did approve them moving in there, but thought that we should at least bring this forward to council so that that you guys are aware that this is happening, and that we would be recommending that we don't charge the breakfast club rent, similar to we don't charge the food bank rent. We do have $800 in the 2020 budget that is earmarked for youth programs. Considering we're in a pandemic in the year, there's not going to be any really use for that $800. So I would recommend that we could reallocate those funds from the council donation line into the facility rental line, which will help that revenue line for the facility rental and help justify some of the little expenses that we will incur because of them utilizing the facility. That's all I have there.
One of the expenses would be cleaning afterwards, right? For sure. So
yeah, sometimes they're the last ones in and the first ones in, so we don't clean. We only clean it in between the nutrition program and the food bank. So
right.
Like, which they're only in certain days of the month. So.
Okay, thanks. I think this one's pretty straightforward. Is there any discussion, or should we just make the motion to approve the request, basically? Councillor Ward?
For you, I'd make the motion to receive and make the request.
Approve it? Yes, okay.
Approve it, sorry,
Seconder?
approve it.
Be Councillor Archer. Okay, all in favor? That'd be carried. Thank you. Next on the list would be council liaison reports. Anybody will have anything verbal they'd like to say today on this? Something short and sweet. Councillor Ward?
Sorry, through you, Mayor. It is short and sweet. I would just like to thank staff for taking on the Scarecrow Road challenge. It was initiated by the Cultural Heritage Committee last year, and we're very thankful that staff is on a video upload of photos, and I'm hoping that lots of people participate. And the second thing, I'll have an ORCA update after the Thursday meeting that I will participating in this coming Thursday. That's it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. I won't review County Council because you received all of those minutes. And PCAD we've discussed. I just want to make the announcement, which I'm sure you've seen, the Farm Family of the Year this year is Chris and Angela Klopmaker of Asphodel Township. So that's exciting. That awards will be held virtually this year, which is a little different, on October 21st. And it's also through the Chamber of Commerce Awards night, which is a little different as well. So pass that along. And Peterborough Agricultural News has an online, online newsletter, but they also have an online local food direct sales to consumers link as well. So that is something that's new. So those two announcements from the ag community, and that's everything for today.
Thank you. Anyone else at this time? Okay, thanks. Next is the CAO Clerk Treasurer's list. Please.
So just to echo Councillor Ward, just want to put out there about the Scarecrow Roadshow. There's a couple of little tweaks. So this year we are going to be putting out a roadmap, which is like an app where you can actually follow along to each of the, it's actually creating you a map digitally on your phone. So we will be working on that and hoping to have it released around October 8th, 9th, in that range. So you will be able to participate, obviously, through good old-fashioned paper, and participate and go around and see all of the properties that have registered, but you also can electronically participate now. So that'll be the first time we've done this in the township. And if it is successful and Melanie and I survive getting it launched and live, then you potentially could see this tool used in other aspects throughout the township. Also, the auditors will be joining us on the October, the first meeting in October, assuming that we're still having the first meeting in October. The auditors will be coming to deliver the financial statements for 2019, finally. So we finally got through that process electronically, and I really hope that the interim, so we get it done now, and the interim is November or December for 2020. So I'm hoping that they're in person. It was onerous, to say the least. They did end up coming into the township office because I asked nicely to do a little bit of it, because only 2 of us in the office, and we got through a good chunk of it because it was definitely a process. What would take 5 minutes took an hour, you know. So anyway, got through it. So the financial statements are coming. They're not forgotten about. And that is, I don't want to hear myself talk anymore, so I'm done.
Well, I'm sure you're still going to be talking in a bit. Thank you. Okay, so next is general business. So then we are going to be talking about a meeting in October. So I mean, it's Thanksgiving weekend coming up. I'm not familiar with all the dates. One day seems to fly into the next for me right now. So that's open for discussion. CAO, what was the suggestion?
So the dates would be October 13th and October 27th. As per the council meeting schedule. Traditionally, what we have done is local government week probably is the week after the Thanksgiving week. So it would be like the start of October 19th. That week is local government week. So a lot of times we've moved a council meeting and held it during that week. And then we would sometimes end up with council meetings weeks back to back. So we'd end up canceling one. And so it is quite common for us to just have one meeting in October, since we stopped going to the high school to deliver that meeting. So just want to confirm with council what the preference is. If you want to move it away from the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, move it to the next week. Do you want to move forward with the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, keep the 2nd and 4th Tuesday? Just need to know, because all the proper notifications have to be given to the public if we're changing up any dates. And also we need to know when to have the agenda ready. So
Councillor Archer, please.
If we go to only one meeting, do you have too much stuff for just one meeting in October, or do you think we could do it all in one meeting?
If we can do today in one meeting, we could probably do about anything in one meeting, but I would ask that we move the meeting to not be, if it's going to be one meeting in October, I don't want it to be on the 27th, because that's 5 weeks.
I'd make a move that if we're only going to go to one meeting, that we have it on October the 19th. We move it 1 week past the 13th and 1 week sooner.
Oh. Yep, that's doable. 100, like from a staffing perspective.
Well, sorry, no, it'd be the 20th. Sorry, the 19th is a Monday, so it would be if you want to keep them on Tuesdays, then I'll just move it 1 week in each way.
Okay.
Any other discussion from council on that one? I'm easy going either way, personally. I think having it the day after is sometimes tough, just because you're packing and coming from someplace and doing one thing or another. So
we have a lot of staff off at Thanksgiving too, for reporting wise and agenda wise. It's a little tough, but I don't want to see it on the 27th either. That's way too long. We've got way too much on. So
right. So with that discussion in mind, then so if we did move it to the 20th, then is that a motion that we need right at this moment then?
Yes, and so the motion would be that council approves the deviation from procedural bylaw 2020-33 to conduct a regular meeting of council on October 20th, 2020 at 1 p.m. And are we still via electronic means?
I personally, my just thoughts is the way that it's going right now. As much as I want to get back into the same room with you folks, I still think we need to wait a little longer to see where this is going. It's not getting better yet out there. But it's open for discussion, council. Please talk. Deputy Mayor Burt.
Yeah, I'm good with the October 20th meeting, even though there's no fair this year. Yeah. Changes things a little bit. October 20th is good. I support staying online, but I think it needs a further discussion on the 20th.
Yep.
For sure.
Okay.
I
All
do
right.
have,
Yes, Council. Candace, please.
well, I'm going to need a closed session with council. So I would be willing for you guys to start thinking about that would be our first in-person meeting, would be a special meeting to handle a couple of closed session items only. And that could be before the 20th of October, maybe the week before or the same week of or right after that meeting. And that would we could test the waters with that, test the facility. And I am not comfortable holding a closed session via Zoom. So that would get us into the same room. That is assuming obviously that the second wave we have to reevaluate on October 20th, because obviously, as you can see what the province is doing, who knows what the world's going to look like by then, but just throwing that out there for council's thoughts.
Okay, so that would be basically the call of the chair then, I guess, at that time. So if we did arrange to have our meeting on the 20th, then basically we could put an amendment out to our council meeting that we would hold it closed after the fact, after the meeting, and set that up. Say, if we had our meeting at 1, then we could set our closed meeting up, say, for 4, if that was the case. Or we could do it, that would probably be the more ideal way to do it, right? You're muted again.
You're saying hold them the same day?
That's possibly.
We'd have a difficult time knowing the time if you have to put a time on there, because we really don't know when we're ending. So I'm just wondering if we could work with councilors' schedules to figure out.
Why don't we hold it on the 27th? We should have had a regular council meeting that day
Okay.
anyway.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. I'm good with that. We'll just depend on what time's good for you, Councillor War. You're still working out of town quite a bit.
I am every day. Anytime after 2 close would be ideal, but it's a regular meeting. So if I have to be there at 1, I'll be there at 1. It works better for people.
Well, since we are canceling the regular meeting of council, we can change the time. So if you want to hold it at 2, or it won't be a long meeting because it's closed session. So
It would be ideal if that would be okay with everyone.
did you say 2?
2.
2?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the motion then would be that we hold our regular council meeting via Zoom through at 1 p.m. on the 20th, and that we'll hold a closed session meeting on the 27th at 2 in person, basically. So, and that would be probably in the Millennium Room, would it, Candace? Yeah. You're muted there. But okay, so that would be the motion. Deputy Mayor Burt, you have a comment?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you. Seconder? Oh,
No,
wait, Candace?
No. So we have a motion on the floor that Wilburn put forward that was to have a meeting on the 20th. So we haven't seconded or voted even on that motion yet. So we can't move on to another one. So we can just add it all to his motion if Wilburn's okay with that.
Yep, that's fine. Just add it to the same motion.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Wilburn. Yeah, you're right. Okay, seconder then. Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? Unanimous hands, that's carried. Thanks, Candace, for that. Okay, so still under general business then. I think Councillor Walsh, you mentioned something about letters to the government. You wanted to.
Yeah, we've a couple of us have mentioned, we've spoke during the whole cannabis zoning bylaw amendment discussion about reaching out and having some conversations with MP and MPP, kind of what needs to transpire. I know, Kenneth, you've already mentioned you've had conversations with this group, but what else do we need to kind of do with that? Can you provide?
I think, adopting and putting a motion forward and then putting more correspondence forward under the mayor's signature and council's signature is not a bad thing.
Okay.
You know, it's a good thing.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So I will gladly put that on the floor that we adopt a letter that will be sent off to MPP Pacini and MP Lawrence regarding the whole cannabis regulations and support required from the upper tiers of government.
Deputy Mayor
So
Burt?
just,
Sorry.
okay, just so I'm clear of exactly what my conversations with them have been, just want to make sure that we will be verbalizing and communicating what you want us to communicate. So we want to advocate for some sort of governing body that's going to put some land use planning restrictions in place that'll have a uniform approach to the province so that each municipality isn't left to its own vices. That's what the song I've been singing. Is that?
Yeah, that would be probably the main part. And secondly, probably more through MP Lawrence is just this around, like we're not being told when these licenses, like, is there a better communication piece that we could have in play regarding them providing, administering licenses that we're aware of who's getting a license.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Burt, you had something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that notification piece, and also if we could include the two federal and provincial ag ministers on that, I think that's important as well. Ernie Hardeman and Bibeau, Jean-Claude Bibeau, I think is our federal minister.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to include the MP Smith as well.
Yep.
And I'm going to do all of the MPs and MPPs in Peterborough County and Northumberland County, I think, because there's 3 for Peterborough County. So,
yeah, okay. That's fair.
Would it also hurt to distribute it to the other townships? What we're saying too? I don't know. Like you see correspondence come through from other townships to say this is what we're up to.
Yeah.
It probably wouldn't hurt. I mean, we're going through a lot of pain here and the public are too, because of not understanding what the government's asking of us. And yet, it's like pulling hair to get done today what we had to do in order to protect our township. So, I mean, if we can help other townships get through this hump as much as what we've gone, then we're still not done yet, but I think anything would help. So,
good point. I support that.
Okay, so is that, do we need a motion on that to send that letter through?
it's already on the floor, Mayor. Just need to vote on it.
Okay, all in favor? That's carried then. Thank you, unanimous. Any other general business then, council? Okay, seeing no hands. We have no notices of motion and we have no closed session today. Candace, you didn't want to talk, but I need to have the bylaws, please.
Being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2020-11, being a bylaw to establish fees and charges to be collected by the corporation of the township of Asphodel-Norwood, be read a first, second, and third time and numbered 2020-42.
Okay, here's where we get the hands going. Deputy Mayor Burt and Councillor Archer, all in favor? That would be carried.
Being a bylaw to provide for the installation of a stop sign in the township of Asphodel-Norwood, be read a first, second, and third time and numbered 2020-43.
Councillor War, Councillor Walsh, all in favor? Carried, unanimous. Thank you.
Being a bylaw to authorize execution of a services agreement between the Board of Health for Peterborough County City Health Unit and the corporation of the township of Asphodel-Norwood, be read a first, second, and third time and numbered 2020-44.
Councillor Archer and Deputy Mayor Burt, all in favor, please. That's carried, unanimous. Thank you.
Being a bylaw to respect the licensing and regulation of mobile canteens and mobile refreshment vehicles in the township of Asphodel-Norwood, be read a first, second, and third time and numbered 2020-45.
Motion, Councillor War, Deputy Mayor Burt, all in favor. That's carried, unanimous. Thank you.
Being a bylaw to authorize a merger agreement between John Ernest Warner, the applicant, and the Maple View Retirement Residence, Inc., the purchaser, and the corporation of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood be read a first, second, and third time in number 2020-46.
That'd be Counselor Walsh and Counselor Archer. All in favor, please. That's carried, unanimous. Thank you.
Being a bylaw to authorize execution of a subdivision agreement between DPH Developments, Inc. and the corporation of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood be read a first, second, and third time in number 2020-47.
Okay, that'd be Counselor War and seconder, Counselor Archer. All in favor? That's carried unanimous. Thank you.
Being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2009-08 as amended, being a bylaw to regulate the use of land and the use and erection of buildings and structures within the Township of Asphodel-Norwood be read a first, second, and third time and numbered 2020-48.
Motioned, Counselor Deputy Mayor Burt and Counselor Archer, please. All in favor? That'd be carried.
And confirming bylaw, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood held on September 22nd, 2020, be read a first, second, and third time and numbered bylaw 2020-49.
That'd be Counselor Walsh and Counselor Archer. All in favor? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Now, last, Candace, you don't have to speak now. A motion to adjourn at 4:14 and to reconvene our next meeting on October the 20th, 2020, or at the call of the chair. So now I'd like for the motion for that would be Deputy Mayor Burt and Counselor Archer. All in favor? Carried unanimous. So I want to thank council, staff, and the public for their input today for today's meeting. It was a large agenda and job very well done. Thank you and good night.
Have a good day.
See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.